Recording. And Madam Chair,
I'm going to call the roll.
Fabulous.
Okay.
Did anyone? And there's agenda and stuff.
at this
Did you
table.
put
Yes, ma'am. The agendas are right up there at the front. Okay. Chair Strickler,
Here.
Sforza. Absent at this time. Fisher,
Present.
Hinman,
Here.
Keats. Absent at this time. Langdon. Absent at this time. Langer. Absent at this time. Shin,
Here.
Taylor. Hal,
Here.
Tracy Kimmons.
I'm here.
perfect. Thank you, Tracy.
I don't know if she's on.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you so much.
And you can note that I'm here as well, Tyler, and
Yes.
also that you're here, just for the record.
Yes, Councilmember Dewar is here and I am her community liaison, Tyler Shaw.
Thank you so much and welcome.
Thank
to our
you.
board team now. Tyler, so nice to-
Thank you.
You want to do it?
Hi.
Well, Happy New Year, everyone.
Thank you.
Welcome, everybody, to the. Grand entrance.
For 1.5.
For everybody.
Tyler,
Please.
please mark Tyler as present.
Thank you. The record reflects Member Langdon is present.
Thank you so much. Well, again, welcome everybody to our Ward 2 NAB and Happy New Year. We didn't have a meeting last December, so it's nice to see everybody back. We have a very, very full agenda today, so we will be keeping close watch on the time for speakers and for public comment today, so we can move through this and get through all the projects and everybody gets their this evening. So we're going to make sure that that's fair. So with that, we've got the roll call. Was there any public comment before the meeting starts this evening?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have comments from Brian Beffert.
Mr. Beck?
I believe he's here in person. Oh,
Yes, hi. That's it, Rick? Okay,
we'll have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
thank you. Hi, everyone. My name's,
Would you like to stand up?
no.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. My name's Brian Beffert, born in Washoe Med and longtime resident of Reno. I speak on my own behalf tonight. And it's regarding the Fire Creek Crossing project, and I am neither opposed nor pro, but neutral, and you'll hear my thoughts. After the outdoor retailer convention left Reno, I was on the team that tried to pull them back. And just for the record, they did not leave because there were not enough casino hotel rooms in town. In fact, there were thousands of rooms empty that weekend. Longer story than I have time for. Ultimately, the CEO of a major outdoor brand told me, Brian, we love Reno, but when the show's over each day and we walk out the doors, what are we going to do? The Atlantis isn't enough. 10,000 people are going to have to call cabs to find a place to eat. And of course, we all know that Outdoor Retailer has not come back. They're currently in Utah. So I agree that developing some sort of attraction in this part of town is necessary. And a casino might just be it. I, for one, love outdoor dining and live music, so I look forward to seeing what this casino brings to our community. But I do have a few concerns. I'm concerned that casinos do not support economic development around them. Just look at the dismal state of downtown and the lack of vibrant activity near the Peppermill or the Atlantis. So I have to ask, will this project be investing in our community or extracting from our community? Nevada has also made a commitment to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in the state by 45% by 2030 and net zero by 2050. And because this building will be in place that when it's time for that goal, my question is, will this development help us or harm us in reaching that goal? At the public meeting via Zoom a few weeks ago, one of your team mentioned local sourcing for materials and insulated windows. And those are great starts, but much more needs to be done. Your team also mentioned year-round outdoor dining, which tells me a lot of fossil fuels will be burning to heat that outdoor space. I encourage this development team to think beyond business as usual and to become a beacon for sustainability. To show Reno, Nevada, and the world how it's possible to create economic development and tourism while also being sustainable. I would love to celebrate a LEED Platinum casino here in town. One way you can do this is to explore the AutoCase software package, which performs triple bottom line analyses and planning for development projects. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Any other public comment?
Would anyone else in the room like to give public comment for today's meeting? Is there anyone online who would like to give public comment for today's meeting? If you'd like to give comments, please indicate by raising your hand using the raise hand button at the bottom of your Zoom panel. Madam Chair, it doesn't look like there's anyone else registered for public comment today.
Thank you very much. All right, I'd like to move to item A3, approval of the, do we have any changes to the agenda today?
No.
Thank you so much. Would anybody like to make a motion?
Move to approve.
We got a motion to approve by Patrick,
Second.
second by Tyler. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Approval of the minutes from October 18th. Any changes to the minutes?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Anybody like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
Sure. I want to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Tyler. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you so much. All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion says thank you. Number 8.5, council liaison report, Councilwoman Ward.
Well, hi, everyone. I just want to thank everyone that has showed up today to participate in our NAB meeting. It's incredibly important. And for those who haven't had the chance to participate before, what happens is you do a presentation or questions from the NAB. The floor is open for questions from the public or general comments, including on the Zoom. And then the NAB members will take a few minutes to write some comments. They may not do that today. What they've been doing is doing it online and sending those comments into the Planning Commission staff so that they can consider the thoughts that this group has. And just if you haven't participated before, many of the members have been here, participated for a long time. And they've become pretty savvy about what's going on in Ward 2 and how to evaluate development and what is of interest for economic development for the community, and also what's of interest to neighborhoods in terms of neighborhood stability, traffic patterns, and those kind of things. So we always, and I certainly do, and I know the Planning Commission does, value the comments from the NAB. And those are all public records, so everybody can see those as well. And in light of the fact this is the biggest agenda that we've had, I mean, usually we'll have, a big agenda would be 3 projects. And I think today we have 6 or close to.
That's correct.
I'm gonna truncate my comments other than just welcoming everyone, and I'll do a fuller report next time. We also would normally have our quarterly Reno Police Department report today, but we also took that off the agenda so that there would be enough time for thorough review of all of these projects. So I think with that, just thanks for being here, and we're looking forward to the presentations.
Moving on to item A6, staff liaison report.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tyler Shaw. I am your new Ward 2 Community Liaison, and I will be running the Ward 2 Neighborhood Advisory Boards. To my right, I have Chief Innovation and Experience Officer Ashley Turney. She's here as my training wheels for this meeting. It's my first Ward 2 NAB, so please be kind to me, but I'm very excited to be here with everyone, and thank you so much.
We're glad to have you and welcome. We're a fun ward.
Thank you.
And with that, we're going to move straight into these development projects. So we're going to dive right in this evening. The first one is 311 LGC 23000030 Fire Creek Crossing Resort Casino. A request has been made for a conditional use permit for 1, the establishment of a hotel with non-restricted gaming operations, and 2, grading resulting in fills greater than 10 feet in height. The 19.92 plus acre parcel is located on the northwest corner of the intersection of South Virginia and Kitsky Lane. The site has a zoning designation of mixed use urban MU with SMU. With the gaming overlay, and the G1 and a master plan master plan land use designation of suburban mixed use SMU. The project requires a conformance review by the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Commission, RPC, for a project of regional significance pursuant to the Nevada Revised Statutes 278.0278. And with us this evening, we've got Mr. Andy Green from Blue Builders. I know that.
Over here in the corner.
That's going to be starting off our presentation. Andy, welcome to the NAS.
Thank you. Good to be back. I haven't been here in a while. Joined you virtually a few times over the last few years, but good to be in person. Andy Durling, I'm with Wood Rogers, representing the Fire Creek Crossing Resort Casino Development. Next slide, please. Just to give you a little introduction to the project. So this is, next slide, please, just a little visual, little introduction on Elevation Entertainment, the applicant. They currently own a few different casino operations in the California area, Stone's Gambling Hall, which is in the Citrus Heights or Sacramento region, and then 7 Mile Casino down in Chula Vista. They've been in business for more than 50 years and in the gaming business for a number of years here. So this is an exciting project for them. They're very much ingrained in the communities that they do business in. Next slide, please. Just some kind of a flavor here of some of the big gives that they've done in the communities they've been in business in, and just again to give a flavor for the type of community member that they are to kind of set the stage. Specifics of the project, located just kind of regionally here on the south side of town at the northwest corner of Virginia Street and Kitski. What we're asking for is conditional use permits to construct a hotel with non-restricted gaming, as well as grading that's going to result in fill greater than 10 feet. We'll get into the details of that. We did conduct a town hall, virtual town hall, a couple of weeks ago. Just some of the kind of issues and questions that we heard: pedestrian safety, noise, local amenities, locating, sustainability, jobs, affordable housing, security, entertainment, traffic. Just wanted to kind of give you a flavor for what we heard. We're going to cover a lot of this in the presentation, and at the end, I'll kind of go through the specifics of each of these, of how we're addressing them, or how we're kind of working with staff to address some of these concerns. Next slide. Some of the existing conditions of this site. So it's the 2 properties that are located just across from the convention center, again, right at the northwest corner there of South Virginia and Kitski. Part of it's in the Fire Creek Crossing Shopping Center. So the TJ Maxx, Sam's Club, Walmart, kind of just to orient folks. The eastern parcel, so this parcel 12 on the right side of your screen, has been vacant for a number of years. The other parcel on the left side of it is part of that Fire Creek Crossing. Used to be the old Circuit City and Best Buy. Circuit City as a company went out of business about 15 years ago. I think this location closed about closer to 20 years ago. The Sports Authority, which is on the west side there, they went out of business 10 or more years ago. I think that location probably 12 to 15 years ago went out of business. So both of those big box retail locations have been vacant for that entire time, with the exception of some kind of seasonal, the Spirit Halloween store goes in there most years. So they really have had a struggle to find tenants, and really that's indicative of the retail market. Or I don't know about all of you, but I order a lot online and it shows up on my doorstep, and I'm not going to the big box stores anymore. So that's true for a lot of us, and it's definitely changed that landscape. There's just less of those tenants in the market to fill those big spaces. Next slide, please. Just to give you kind of a flavor of what's out there right now. So the bottom right, those are those big box stores. They've been vacant for a long time. The striping in the parking lot is gone. It's just an underutilized site that really needs to be redeveloped. The vacant parcel, vacant, it's been used as staging ground for some construction activities on major public works projects. Also, unfortunately, it has been a kind of an ongoing issue of homeless encampments in there. And so with the redevelopment of this, we're able to revitalize this area, not just from the vacant property perspective and some of those issues that we have, but also those big box retail stores that have just sat vacant and dark for more than 20 years. Next slide. Some of the planning context here, the master plan for this area is suburban mixed use. That was a part of the Reimagine Reno adopted master plan back in 2017. It is still identified in the convention center, so it's part of that kind of regional center of activities associated with the convention center. The zoning of it's zone mixed urban. And then as an overlay, it has an overlay district for gaming as well, which is that bottom side. Down in this area, these two properties, and then everything kind of to the north of it, the Old Town Mall, Atlantis, obviously, is part of that gaming overlay district in this vicinity. Next slide. So getting into some of the specifics of the property and the project itself. Just under 20 acres. What's proposed is a little over 1.1 million square foot building. That consists of 62,500 square feet of gaming floor area, a 13-story hotel with 201 hotel rooms, a 5-story parking garage, which is on the left side of your screen there, outdoor pool deck on the second floor, which we'll see in some other imagery, outdoor courtyard, what we're calling the park, which is a major feature here on the southeast side. 6 restaurants and a food hall, ballroom and a sports book. Overall, a 1.32 floor area ratio. That's consistent and exceeds the requirements of that mixed urban zoning district. And just over 1,800 parking spaces will be provided. Next slide. This property is a little unique. The vacant property is associated with a grandfathered gaming license that is part of the retrack project. So when the city of Reno undergrounded the train tracks that go through downtown Reno, there were a number of businesses that were displaced as part of that. One in particular was the old Turf Club. For locals that have been around for a while, Turf Club was a small casino located along the rail line there. It was displaced, and in lieu of condemning it, there were a number of these businesses that the city went into an agreement with them on in order to ultimately relocate those gaming licenses somewhere else in the city. So that relocation agreement is an agreement between the property owner or the agreement holder, I should say, and the city of Reno. There were 7 degrees of nonconformity that were part of that old casino. So it didn't have hotel rooms. It really was just a gambling hall, a gaming facility. And so some of those 7 degrees, we're taking care of all of that now. So just to kind of walk through some of these.
And Andy, do you mean the stations? When you say the previous, it almost sounds like it was 20 years ago. You mean the Stations Casino?
No, the old.
The one at the downtown?
So no, the old
train
Turf
tracks?
Club. The
Yeah.
old Turf Club
Gotcha.
had 7 degrees of nonconformity.
That's
It was a
where I-
nonconforming
Okay.
use. And so when they relocated it, they were able to continue some of those uses had they
Gotcha.
relocated somewhere else.
Okay.
So we have that gaming license is coming with this. And as part of that, there's 7 degrees of nonconformity that could be continued. Okay, and so just walking through those 7 nonconformities. The previous property was not zoned for hotel and casino, not zoned for gaming use. This property is, so that's no longer going to continue. The previous use didn't contain any hotel rooms. We're now providing 201 hotel rooms consistent with that relocation agreement. The previous use didn't have any parking at all. And there was a requirement that any future parking must have a minimum ratio. We're exceeding that. We're meeting code with the new parking for this facility. Previous property did not have parking lot landscaping, didn't have parking, didn't have a parking lot, didn't have parking lot landscaping. So we are obviously we're landscaping per code. Next slide. The previous property did not provide public space. So this is part of the gaming uses in the city of Reno. There's a requirement to provide public space as a ratio of your gaming floor area. So they didn't have any public space, and the ratio of public space to gaming must be 1-to-1 in the future. We are actually providing 2.5-to-1 under roof. When you count in that park courtyard area, we're actually 3-to-1 of public space. The previous property did not provide any street trees. We'll be providing street trees per code. And the previous signs were in excess of code. They had giant signs on top of the roof and things like that. We will be proposing signage that is in conformance with code allowances. Next slide. So just to reiterate, here's the 7 degrees of nonconformity. The property zoning is no longer applicable. The hotel rooms is now met with the relocation agreement allowances. The parking is no longer applicable. Parking lot landscaping no longer applicable. Public space, street trees, and sign all no longer applicable. So we're really bringing this property into conformance with this gaming license on this new project. Next slide. In addition to that, so gaming uses, you don't see a lot of them. You guys are used to seeing subdivisions and commercial properties and things like that. So just want to go through quickly. Gaming uses specifically have a number of additional code requirements, and some of those are even in addition because we're in proximity to the convention center. So I want to kind of go through this. Talked already about the public space. 1-to-1 is required. We're at 3-to-1 when you count in some of those outdoor park areas.
Gaming space can't exceed the public space until you go over 37,500 square feet of public space. We've got 196,000 square feet of public space as part of this, as a ratio to that 62,500 square feet of gaming area. Minimum 201 hotel rooms, which is modified by that relocation agreement, which we're providing. Minimum of 20,000 square feet of convention space. This is specific to the being in proximity to the convention center. We've got just over 21,000 square feet of ballroom, which can serve as kind of a multi-use convention space. Minimum of 35,000 square feet of gaming area. Again, a convention center proximity requirement. We've got 62,500 square feet of gaming area with slots and live games to meet that requirement. We're required to have at least 3 restaurants, with one of them open 24 hours for at least 60 occupants. We have up to 6 restaurants proposed with various options that could be provided on a 24-hour basis, many of them providing more than 60 patrons. Connection to and amenities to support the convention center. So we're orienting this project towards a convention center for that pedestrian activity and taking advantage of kind of that compatible use with the convention center. The maximum building height is 300 feet. We're at 185 feet, so well under that maximum. Excellent. One of the things that came up, as I mentioned, in our neighborhood meeting was traffic. Some of those considerations we wanted to highlight today. So we had a comprehensive traffic study, looked at all the intersections around us, which is consistent with approaches for projects like this in the city of Reno. Overall traffic generation, just over 11,000 daily trips. That's over a 24-hour period. Really what we plan our improvements for and our mitigations for are the peak hour trips. So just over 560 morning peak hour trips, so between 7 and 9 a.m. and then 645 p.m. peak hour trips, which is between 4 and 6 p.m. So that's really the driver, is that p.m. peak hour is driving some of the traffic mitigations, which include increasing the southbound South Virginia left turn pocket, so be able to make a left turn to go northbound on Kitsky. That's a very small turn pocket right now, only maybe holds 2 cars. So we'll be expanding that considerably. In addition, when we submit these applications to the city, they broadcast it to a lot of different departments within the city, as well as the RTC. So we got all of those traffic comments back from them, and we're currently working through that with city staff. But just to kind of give you a highlight of what we're working on with them, one thing they brought up was potential for a traffic signal at Coomley and Virginia Street next to the Dutch Bros there. So we're evaluating that. Also evaluating 2 of these intersections here, the one onto Kitsky Lane, possibly modifying that and limiting some of the movements, and then also our first driveway on Fire Creek Crossing drive there. Again, maybe looking at modifying some of those turning movements. Next slide. Just wanted to highlight some of the landscaping features of this. Obviously, I mentioned earlier, we're landscaping for code, providing the street trees. So all those elements of nonconformity from the relocation agreement are kind of not an issue anymore. One thing I wanted to highlight was this park feature. So in the center of this property is this park. This park is almost an acre in size, oriented towards Virginia and Kitsky, kind of towards that major, intersection, the major thoroughfares there. And really in there is the heart and soul of this property. So a gentleman earlier mentioned about the downtown casinos, and not to disparage them in any way, but that they have, they're very insular, right? They have, you go in and you're in the casino and that's it. This is a kind of a different approach, right? This is pushing the inside of the casino out into this parking area, this park area, highlighting, outdoor, a little bit of outdoor entertainment, some food and beverage venues that would be out there. So it's an opportunity. It's kind of that living space, that third place that is talked about in planning jargon of, it's a place to hang out, right? So this is not just come into our casino and spend your money. It's providing an amenity to the community as well. It's a little bit different approach to gaming operations than they've been in the past. Next slide. This is a rendering of that park. So just kind of giving you, outdoor lounge areas, some dining, coffee, bar. The fountain in the background is coming from that 2nd story pool, which is on the 2nd deck above that. So there's just definitely that integration of the natural features of our greater Lake Tahoe, Reno area, which you'll see in a lot of these renderings. You know, there's a lot of the moving water and stone, and the coloring and everything is meant to mimic the natural environment in our great region here. Next slide. Again, just some renderings here. I'll kind of go through these quickly. The second story pool deck, kind of giving you a flavor of some of the maybe food and beverage venues, spa, gym that would be up there as part of that kind of outdoor experience. Another rendering, kind of one of the early renderings of the park down on that first floor. Next slide. On the left side, this is the hotel entry and lobby entry, which is inside of the garage. So inside the parking garage. On the right side, again, another kind of look at some of the pool deck type features, fire pits, things like that may be part of that. Next slide. This is going to be the main casino entrance that's oriented towards Kitski. So we anticipate this will be more of your kind of Uber Lyft drop-off location. We've looked to really incorporate that as part of our overall circulation and traffic plan, because that's quite frankly just the way that people and patrons are using facilities like this. Next slide. And this is just a kind of a massing 3D to give you a kind of a scale of it. So it's essentially the bulk of it is a 2-story structure. You get the sense of that second story pool deck there with the amenities up there, the lounge, the gym, the spa, the 13-story hotel tower, fairly small footprint there, the 5-story parking garage, and then that park feature that really is the kind of highlight that front door to the overall facility. Next slide. We did do a fiscal impact study as well as an economic impact study. So fiscal being the impact to the city of Reno's coffers, economic impact coming to the broader region as a whole. On the fiscal side, so over a 20-year period, $2.4 million surplus to the city of Reno's general fund, $2.7 million surplus to the streets fund. We're not adding any streets, so it's all benefit to the city on that fact. On the economic side, so kind of breaking it into 2 different buckets. 1 during construction, and then 2 kind of the ongoing operations. During construction, almost $779 million of total impact to Washoe County, which includes direct, indirect, and induced. Economic impact, almost $387 million in labor income, and close to 5,000 jobs supported as during construction. And then the ongoing impact of kind of the ongoing operations of the facility after it's been constructed and open. Almost $135 million of annual output to Washoe County. So kind of that impact to the region as a whole. $47.8 million in labor income and supporting just over 1,000 employees as part of the ongoing operations of this. Next slide. So again, wanted to kind of end with a recap of that town hall and go through some of these a little bit more specifically. So we heard the traffic concerns. We tried to provide a lot more information tonight than we did at the town hall. And as I mentioned, we're working with city staff on appropriate mitigations. Pedestrian safety, there's currently a rapid flashing beacon mid-block about 600 feet up to the north of us. That's kind of the existing crossing location. However, we're also evaluating that traffic signal at Coonley and Virginia Street with city staff. So a traffic signal is going to be a very safe pedestrian crossing situation. So we're working on one of those 2 options to improve that. Affordable housing came up. So obviously we're not developing housing as part of this, but there is a new affordable housing project on Redfield and Baker. I think you're maybe hearing more about that tonight. And the employees of this, it's key to note that they will be receiving living wages and would be able to afford more housing options. Security came up. So currently, I showed you the pictures. Unfortunately, there's kind of homeless encampments. There has been crime activity on especially the vacant properties, as well as those dark retail establishments can be unfortunately kind of attractors for crime. The new project will have 24-hour security, surveillance, lighting, and overall just having more activity. And especially with that pedestrian orientation, that orientation towards Kitski and Virginia Street adds more activity to the street, which tends to dissuade crime and kind of push it out. Noise, we did do a noise study just to look at any potential impacts. There aren't any noise generating sources, which would typically be the main entrances, the valet, The park itself, they're all oriented away from any of the nearest adjacent residential, or they're within, say, the parking structures, for example, that valet. Next slide. Jobs, as I mentioned in the economic study, just over 1,000 jobs, employees supported by overall annual economic input or impact, sorry, and those employees receiving living wages. Questions about local amenities, so kind of what's in it for us, so to speak. So a robust restaurant offering, so adding 6 new restaurants, which would feature an emphasis on local food. Also, the entertainment and convention and meeting space. So having some of those smaller meeting spaces is key. I know my company, we would rent out for different meetings and large things like that. So provides another opportunity in the community for some of those larger spaces. Smoking came up, is this going to be a smoking facility? Obviously, casinos in Nevada historically have been smoking. So what the plan is at this point, and it'll be a market-driven decision for sure. The casino floor only would likely be smoking. And then all of the public areas, the restaurants and things like that would be non-smoking. And then they would be looking to install, really state-of-the-art air handling units that would evacuate that smoke. And there's a lot better technology out there now than, when some of these older casinos came into being. Sustainability, we are looking at an energy and water efficient building. We are investigating the potential for geothermal. There's obviously geothermal in the area. The pepper mill is generates a large portion of their energy from geothermal. So we'll be looking at, if that's an option for us, it could be a good one. Gaming competition came up. So this is an ideal location, we feel, in conjunction with the convention center to support the activities that are going on there. And really, quite frankly, when it comes to additional operators and things like that, it's a rising tides scenario. So rising tides lift all ships. We feel like it's additional advertising dollars of the region, additional amenities that are coming in, additional attraction of potential uses to the convention center. So we feel like that's good for everybody. And then entertainment came up. We have various venues for kind of small to larger types of entertainment acts, and these would be geared toward both tourists and locals. Next slide. This is just that park again to end on that kind of being the main feature. This is like a more dusk or evening look at it. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Good job, Andy. Thank you so much. Very great information. Hey, board members.
Cal Taylor for the record. I want to go very specific. I know we have general, and I know a lot of people want to talk about the access, traffic access, parking, that kind of thing. I'm a little concerned. I just want to emphasize to you that access to the convention center has to be very carefully planned. Otherwise, you're going to have people going across Virginia. There's got to be a real direction so that people know how they can get across Virginia safely. Otherwise, we're not really supporting the convention center in the way that we should. I'm not saying you have to go through the building that the Atlantis did. I think originally started off with stop sign or some sort of traffic control. But I'm just emphasizing to you, if we're going to try to get a lot of people at the convention center, and we're trying to give them an alternative way for entertainment, eating, that kind of thing, then you've got to really create a safe and obvious way to get across Virginia that works for them, or we sort of undercut the whole point of supporting the convention center.
So, totally appreciate the comment. Totally agree. That's definitely a focus of ours. It's why the site, the building, everything has the orientation that it does. The major entrances are focused towards the convention center and the South Side Kids Fee. It's that's the major activity areas surrounding the property, and that's we felt appropriate as well. So appreciate that comment. Thank you.
Donna?
Yes.
Are you looking at me?
Yes.
She's looking.
Yeah.
Okay. I mentioned this at the town hall meeting. You said in here, your response to affordable housing is that somebody else is building a project right close to you. That is approved, except I'm not sure that it has been, but then Fitch Redfield. It's a senior one, theoretically. So it doesn't really have anything to do with your employees or anything like that. The questions that were at the town hall meeting had more to do with in the affordable housing context, with more like what can you do to help your employees be able to afford to live here. So there's that. that doesn't have to be discussed tonight, but I brought this up at the town hall meeting in relationship to the Vintage Redfield project, where they're claiming that, oh, they can walk across the street for their groceries. You're right, butting up on the end of them. I'm a little concerned about the lack of a global. This isn't exactly your problem, but there's a little bit of a lack of a global picture. Because your intersection on the other side of the parking garage is kind of right there. And I have a lot of concerns about seniors, people who walk slowly, people with, gonna limp across the Sam's Club because it's just 1,000 feet across the street. I drive that street all the time, that's the parkway from the backside of your area. And although it's not densely trafficked, it's speedy. Nobody pays attention, it's not safe on that side of your property, and none of your traffic concerns deal with that side of your property. So I just ask you, while you're going through all these intersection studies, I understand what's required by the code, which isn't this. But in the bigger picture, good neighbor sense of things, maybe you guys could take a look at this other stuff, because there's a lot of things happening right around you. And you're gonna have a big impact on that traffic flow on Redfield, a big impact on other businesses, even better to you east. And so far, we haven't discussed what's gonna be the impact on surrounding businesses, and how can you really integrate in the neighborhood, and the kinds of things that community vitality would be a topic.
Sure.
I would love to see addressed, other than, we're offering new places for you to go, and they're all right here, and they're all in the traffic jam zone. And I know everybody from my part of town will cut through Redfield, come around that way. And I don't think those other people are gonna be safe over there.
Sure, no, I appreciate it. Great comments. A lot to chew on there.
People could just see
Yeah,
what
maybe-
you're talking about, and more of the site map. The bigger.
That probably would.
If you go even
So-
further forward, there's a slightly bigger one.
Go back a little bit.
Yeah, that's the direction you want.
Did you go back towards the front? I'm sorry.
There.
Yeah, that one. So your stop sign on the left, on the west,
Yep. So there-
and then you're just like right across,
And then where would the senior living be?
It's
right there.
off the screen there, to the left. So this is an existing drive aisle. This is the drive aisle that currently goes from Redwood Parkway up to the Sam's Club. We're not actually connecting to it. We'll probably be improving it, part of it, just, as far as the pavement and things like that. But we're not actually putting any traffic onto that. It's kind of that back door into Sam's Club, like you mentioned. Really, I mean, our first entrance is the exit out of the parking garage, which is a right turn only onto Cooley Redfield. It's a little confusing because most of that is named Redfield Parkway, and this little section kind of between on our property is Cooley. So we only have that right out, so we're kind of only sending traffic out that way. And really we have very little traffic coming into the property. Because we don't really, just the way that the existing medians and things like that are set up on Cooley, there's not really an obvious way in. So this is, I didn't mention, this is a kind of a loading dock. Obviously for a facility like this, you gotta have, lots of deliveries and things like that. So that's the loading area. So there is limited amount of traffic going that way in the context of just how we oriented everything. Also, just as kind of some context, I mean, you mentioned, right, Redfield Parkway doesn't have a lot of traffic. We don't anticipate a lot going that way. We looked at this existing intersection. It currently operates at level of service A, so the best operation you can have. And in the future, continues to operate at level of service A with our project. So in context, but definitely hear your comments about the pedestrian safety, and that's something we can.
I'm just saying, I know about all the level of services, what code requires, how you measure, how you do the traffic counts. I also know that's code. You're meeting code, you're doing a great job, you're looking at increasing stacking distances in the turn lanes and doing what you're doing, which is great. But I also know from traveling that area through the back roads all the time, many times a week, functionally, that's not how it really works. People do speed, people use that Sam's Club road a lot, not very much traffic, and people coming on Redfield, they speed, they don't see pedestrians. So there's like hardly any traffic. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
You want integration into the community requires supporting all the people around, I think, and as opposed to being Because one of my questions to you before have been, you're gonna be in, an isolated resort area. What does that do for us? We have a neighborhood back there that's slowly being pecked away at by all kinds of things. And we'd like to have a neighborhood, and then integrate, and there's urban vitality. And the neighborhood node, that this isn't a neighborhood node anymore because it just hasn't been. So you bring a lot of businesses in, it'll be great for the convention center, it'll be great for tourists, it'll be great for locals who want a new place to go out to dinner. But in terms of community, getting your employees to live more locally and having actual traffic and pedestrian things that bring people to your property, stuff like that. So and that's a concern to me because I have almost hit at a lot, and that right where your stop sign is that you don't use, that you're not studying.
Well, we studied it. It's just, we're not pushing.
I know it meets all the criteria. You
Yeah.
don't really have to do anything about it. I understand that.
Definitely something we will,
But I
we will be
think,
discussing kind of traffic in general. with-
yeah, when you go through that,
Cities, yeah, so
I'll be saying the same thing when the teach people speak. So,
Thank you, Donna.
Appreciate it.
Board members? Patrick? Or Tyler?
Go ahead, Patrick.
Okay, Patrick Fisher for the record, is the exit for the parking garage, is that the only exit for the parking garage?
No.
Or is there one off the front of it?
Yeah, so there's kind of this is the entrance to the parking garage, so that, sorry, the shadow. That hotel check-in and kind of valet, you'll see maybe a little difficult from where you're at, but a number of kind of through lanes there. So it's your valet, your drop off, hotel check-in, all that is inside the garage. There's also an additional, if you're just going into park in the garage, there's a ingress and egress here.
Okay,
So if you go in this way, you can exit out onto Redfield, or you can loop back through the garage and exit on Fire Creek. So there are two ways in and out.
okay. And as far as sustainability is concerned, there was a slide much later in the presentation that had the aerial view with the brown roof.
Oh, that's,
Yeah,
I would
we can go back to that.
up a couple. Up, one more. That one.
It just looks like prime
This is,
solar.
no, so this is, it would have a light colored roof membrane. Actually, our project architect was here, he can give you specifics, but it would have a light colored roof membrane on there to not absorb heat, to reflect. This is just for kind of massing purposes to get
Okay.
an idea of kind of the 3D side of it. So
Okay. And
good catch.
yeah, it just looked very dark.
Yep. Very, actually, I mean, when you look at the project architecture, it's very light, very, lots of the blues and lighter colors that are, kind of trying to be reminiscent of granite and the, beautiful blue skies, things like that.
And my only other question was getting trees on the pool deck. Is that possible?
I think, yeah, I would say so.
It's in the rendering, but
A lot of times you'd see them in planters. Yeah, special.
okay,
Yep.
yeah, they look like they were, a little rock planter or something like that.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, that was it.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the rendering of the public space is beautiful. I'm curious though, who's the target audience for this? Like who do you guys expect to be using this space?
I think it's, so, maybe if we could go up.
Is it towards the front?
Yeah,
There it is.
this is fine. So this has, it's kind of that horseshoe shape. So on the horseshoe are, in the inside are restaurants. So you would have, kind of indoor, outdoor dining opportunities. So it would be,
Got it. So you can access the dining from this area.
correct. And then you would have kind of independent, maybe a loungy bar or something like that, a coffee
Okay.
shop, things. So it's trying to, create stickiness, of, getting people to kind of hang out and be there. So kind of original question, it would be oriented towards, people staying at the hotel or
Yeah, yeah.
locals.
It's like the space at Ranchera that they've kind of created
Yeah.
in the middle there.
Yep.
Okay, I was hoping it wasn't just a space for people to come hang out because with the Walmart over there and the Sam's Club, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I don't think you're gonna have the people that are in this rendering necessarily. Probably. Have a safe. Somewhat related to that, and this is maybe just my own personal experience. Do you guys have any concerns of the hotel rooms facing the Sam's Club and the Walmart? I mean, like, from my experience in traveling, like, I don't love the idea of working out at a Walmart from my hotel room when I'm probably paying a decent amount to stay there. Do you guys have any concerns about that?
Well, I think, it's oriented the way it is, really in order to take advantage of the views of Sierras. When you stand on the property and look past the Walmart and the Sam's Club, it's gorgeous, right? Our skyline is unbelievable. So that's, really that's the orientation, is being able to kind of capitalize on the south and west sides of having those kind of panoramic views of the Sierras.
Okay. One more question, in terms of, it's probably pretty far down the road. Are there plans for the property to be union for the culinary union? We're gonna work there eventually? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I just want to make sure and leave this up, and I'm doing this, I talked to somebody who I went to the same meeting you did, and this was a question he had. Do I understand, because there's an access that's on the Virginia Street side,
Yeah.
but that's not coming directly off Virginia Street. You in fact have another area that they pull into, and then they go into that, is that?
Pedestrians or vehicles, which are you? Pedestrians or vehicles?
Cars.
Cars.
Okay,
So-
yeah, cars.
Yeah, so cars, we've got multiple driveways, multiple ways in. So yes, there is a driveway
That's the one
on
I'm
Virginia
talking
Street. It's a right in, right out. So it's a limited access driveway. We mentioned, the Redfield Parkway Coomley is more for people leaving the first facility. We are looking at a driveway on Kidsky, and then really the main access is coming off Fire Creek Crossing into, this is that kind of front door, what I mentioned, kind of for Uber, Lyft type drop off, porte cochere there. And then the garage entrance for hotel check-in.
Yeah,
The majority of the park.
I understand that, and the person that asked me the question wasn't particularly concerned about access off these other streets. He was concerned that there might be some sort of backup or traffic problems if they're coming directly off Virginia. So I'm trying to understand, if I'm driving a car south on Virginia and I want to get into that right there, how am I going to do that?
So we will be building a deceleration lane, a right turn.
Yeah,
block.
separate lane that you go into and then
Yeah.
there and then turn it. Okay,
It's ideal if it's hard, but you can kind of see it, it juts in here and then that's that.
okay.
Deceleration.
I just wanted to confirm that I understood it. So
Okay.
thank you.
Tom?
I have a question. So I know that from this report, it says there probably would be about like 5,000 jobs created during construction. When would you hope to have construction start, and when would you expect it to end?
So just generally speaking, right, once we get through this process and obviously have to obtain these planning approvals first. Once that happens, we probably have 18 months to 2 years of design for a facility like this, and then probably 18 months to 2 years of construction. So it's a 3 to 4 year process.
Okay. And I understand there might be some changes to the roads as you talked about. How would traffic in the area be impacted during the construction stages?
So during construction, obviously it's a little more intermittent. You don't have the constant operations, which are, hitting at peak hours. Construction is usually starting, 7 a.m. in the morning. So it's a little bit before the peak. And then typically they would end a little before the peak. So, but that's something we would have to have a construction management plan as part of the overall construction of it. So that's one of the components that obviously goes into there. There's all sorts of other things as far as, dust control and things like that are also taken into account.
I have a couple questions, Andy. Could you show one of the overviews that shows the surrounding properties?
I can find it.
All the way to the very beginning.
So right here, this is good.
Okay.
Where are the buildings that were the big box?
They are generally located where the parking garage is
Okay.
and the hotel tower kind of in there.
Okay, and the white building to the south, or
Okay.
what is that?
TJ Maxx is there, and then.
Or is it, so it's Home Goods?
Yes.
Could you keep on that one though? So what I have noticed is where the TJ Maxx Home Goods is.
Yeah.
That parking is very crowded. And I'm sure you've accessed it. And the road, the access right in there is at times is almost kind of crazy. I don't know if you've experienced this, but I have. Any thoughts on that? Like are you concerned at all that people park at your area and walk over? Because I've been there at times and it's completely full. I don't know if anyone else thinks, yes?
Same.
Same.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely will be a management concern, right? They'll need to, monitor that as part of it.
And people just pulling out of right in front of TJ Maxx and taking that right. And what I'm worried about is just how that intersects. That's where your traffic's coming in and also leaving. And I think right there might be a bit of a pinch point, just to think about while you're in the design. Yeah. The question I had is, when you say there's a requirement for public space, one-to-one, what is considered public space?
So we, public space, we've included all the restaurants, the ballroom or, convention space.
Okay,
Essentially, it's kind of everything that's not gaming related. And that's not back of house hallways, things like
Okay.
that. So it's, restaurants, ballroom,
I see.
the outdoor, that courtyard, park
Gotcha.
feature, the pool.
That counts, all
Yeah.
those count.
All that.
Now,
Public-facing versus-
speaking of the pool, I know is the Peppermill pool, I think, is open to the air.
Yeah.
I didn't know, if there consideration for enclosing it, or I don't know what you were thinking.
Not in the renderings at this time.
Yeah.
No, it would.
Okay. And then I was wondering about, when you mentioned living wage, what the heck is that? What is that?
So it, just based on the wages that would be paid plus tip income.
I mean, are we
obviously,
at $15 an hour at minimum wage, or are we at 21?
No, it would be above that. So,
You think so, all the jobs?
well, on average, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, when you're thinking, 700 employees or 700 to 1,000 employees, something like that. I mean, across the board, it's gonna have, a spectrum.
so I think the issue about affordable housing that was being raised is that a lot of gaming establishments have some lower paid people monitoring, the machines, or making change, or serving cocktails, or restauranting, bartending, whatever. Maybe not including bartending, but just serving. Housekeeping for the hotels, housekeeping for the entire facility. All of these are generally pretty low wage jobs. I've gotten to know some of the employees at Peppermill, Atlantis, and just nearby. And there's a lot to keep these places running in terms of even maintaining those planters outside. I meet people repairing rooms, fixing the furniture.
Yeah.
Et cetera, et cetera. And I just wondered, I mean, I would have to assume that most of the employees, like 2/3, would be lower wage paid. So I wanted to ask, because we're having housing challenges right now. I just don't know where they live. Do they live all the way in North Valleys and drive into the casino, or any thoughts?
I mean, that's so difficult.
I know.
How do we, anticipating where people are gonna.
Well,
live.
let me rephrase it a different way. We recently had I think how many apartments are coming in, 96 apartments over by Virginia Lake. And as part of their, let's call it concession to the area, they're also contributing over and above their room residential construction tax for parks. They're contributing over and above that. So quite a bit. And they're contributing specifically to the dog park improvements and those kind of things. Something to think about. We recently did a project, I want to say in North Valleys, where we asked for a contribution to affordable housing, to our affordable housing trust. I just didn't know if, I know you're just at this point, but I think it's something worth thinking about.
Yeah.
Because probably council's going to ask, right? Is there, for example, just blocks away, we're putting in the Moana pool. It's going to be a huge draw. It's going to be an Olympic facility. It's going to bring in tourism right there. The Atlantis has already pledged $250,000 to that facility. It's just some of the things that we're thinking about and dealing with. So just, for the folks back here, just some things to think about, the questions that are being asked in terms of how do you fit to the community? Everybody gets you meet code, right?
Sure.
You're gonna meet code. But the other things, you're gonna bring a fantastic, I think, enhancement for the convention center. You know, if people leave, if they wanna leave, I don't know.
Yeah.
They might just wanna stay, but then you just gotta think about some of these other things, you know, the people, the living, where, you know, where are these people going? Oh, in addition to Reno Town Mall is around the corner.
Yeah.
You know, just some.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I mean, I don't know that I have all the answers, but
Right.
you know, that's a, those are kind of big,
Right,
big.
but for you to take it home, which is.
Yeah,
the
yeah, no, I
purpose of the
appreciate
meeting.
that. And I think, you know, maybe I'd offer just perspective, right, is, you know, it is because it's an infill location.
Yeah.
And it's a, you know, redevelopment of
Right.
something that's really not generating anything
Right.
for the city right
It's-
now.
right.
That's a good thing.
It is.
You know, because it's an infill, there are amenities and other services around it. There's housing, it's walkable
Yeah.
from housing, things like that. It's also on the Virginia Bus Rapid Transit line,
Right.
right? So like employee, as a
Huge
big
plus.
employer, there's a great opportunity because people, you know, who.
But is there a place to stop? Like I know, I think on the other side, the convention center has.
So we would need to work with RTC if they wanted to put one in this location. I think there's one upstream and one downstream.
Downstream.
So.
Two more questions, just for our brains, how does this compare, let's say, to the Atlantis in terms of square foot or employees or room? I know rooms, I think Atlantis has 300, but in terms of, you know, just, is it the same size? Is it smaller, bigger?
I don't know.
Well, it's something to think about just to put in scale for the
Yeah,
rest of
no.
us. And then finally, thinking about the Atlantis, I go there a lot, like almost everybody, they have so much ballroom, meeting space room. So many meetings locally are held there. Every kind of meeting. And parking is always a challenge, even as much parking as they have. It is very filled. And I'm just wondering, I'm trying to understand your parking garage. And I understand you said 1,800, if I remember, total.
Yeah, over.
I would be interested to find out, you know, how this compares on size with both nearby casinos and how much parking they have. Because you're gonna have to be self-contained.
Yeah.
And we already know that some of the areas close by are filled up with parking. Now, maybe the area is it, but it's all the way across. And that's a major street right there, Kitski. You're not
Yes.
walking across Kitski. Right there. That's a 4-lane.
No, you would be crossing on Virginia Street here at Fire Creek. Those are two signals. for-
Yeah. Okay.
So parking wise, just maybe give you about 300-ish parking spaces, certain parking spaces, and then about 1,500,
Okay.
give or take.
And then I guess last question would be about, you know, I'm the one who brought up geothermal to you, and I'm thrilled that you guys are thinking about it, whether it's self-serving. I don't know where you would put a well here, or if there is a resource below the site, or if you would want to work with the city, you know, on our developing geothermal, but you know, those conversations are happening now. So
Yeah.
Thank you for considering it. And I know you got a big roof, and I don't know how to fit solar into it because you don't want to like beam the light onto the tower, and the tower's on the southwest side. So I'm not really sure how that, you know, if you could even integrate that.
Definitely something we would look into.
I meant, I'm sorry, not the tower, but the parking garage.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Stacy.
I have a question, and this is more for City of Reno folks, and I apologize because I am new to the NAB, and my background is in state policy, so I don't know on a municipal level. But is there anything within like City of Reno? Can you put any sort of requirements on a new project to ask, like, I need X amount or percentage of employees that are full-time with access to benefits, or some
No,
sort
I
of,
mean, we had that, I'm listening.
oh, okay, some sort of floor as far as like this living wage. I've been through enough projects at the state level to know what is promised in the beginning hasn't ever actually been what's panning out. So not to cast doubt here, but is there a way of saying, like, you know, guaranteeing the right to unionize, or, you know, a livable wage? I'm sorry, our state minimum wage is not sufficient. That's not a livable wage, right? So I'm just wondering, can the city put on requirements?
Do we have?
Of course, absolutely.
Hi, my name is Heather Garina. I'm the general counsel for Elevation. Between our two locations, we currently employ over 700 employees. The vast majority of those employees, I would say about 80%, fall into various minority groups. Many of them don't have more than a high school education, and some of them don't even speak English. I can tell you because I'm personally involved both with benefits, setting wages, and also setting what we have there. Of the 700 employees, I would say about 500 of them are in tipped positions. So in addition to getting minimum wage, most of them also get tips on average between $24 and $35 an hour, in addition to the minimum wage. So when we W-2 the employees out at the end of the year, they're making somewhere between $75,000 and $100,000. And that's just for most of our employees that are in the tipped position. The other 20%, they're kind of split between management, so they're going to be higher level. And then there's probably a very, very small portion, so maybe 10, 20 people who do maintenance. And they're also, their hourly rate is above minimum wage because we have to pay to keep the security guards. You have to pay them somewhere between $25 and $35 an hour to keep them in those jobs. I imagine that we would also have similar benefits to what we offer in California. And that's offered to everybody who chooses to be full-time. As an employer, it is always better to have full-time employees because then you have consistency. What's interesting about casinos is that these people, they like to have more flexibility. So the people who choose to be part-time, they're doing it because they're making enough money in their job and they only want to work 2 days or 3 days. And that's their choice. Because they're making enough money to do what they need to do. So almost everyone is hired full-time, and then it gets adjusted down based on what they want, how much they want to work, and whether or not that's matching the business model and in where they're fitting into the program. Did that kind of answer the question?
On your end, I'm still curious though, policy wise, if the city actually has the authority to put some sort of stipulation. So it doesn't
will
sound like
find
you
out.
have.
Find out, it hasn't come up before. I will tell you on the other side, if you take a hotel like the Atlantis, I think they're in the top 3 property taxpayers in Reno. And I don't know where the Peppermill fits, but I think it's right up there too. But Atlantis may be number 1 or 2 top property taxpayers. So that's at least a very good thing.
Anyone over 100 employees has to comply with the Affordable Care Act, and that has all of those requirements, and you submit these calculations and it's reported every year. So even if the city didn't do it, like this business would have to comply with all of the federal requirements, and they're fairly onerous.
May I re-ask my labor question then? Are the other properties that you guys have labor properties, or would you guys be looking at joining the culinary union?
That is not something that our employees typically are interested in.
Okay.
Because it's employee driven, it's always voted by employees, and that's not something that our industry is interested in California.
Okay. In Nevada, it's a little different.
I have a couple questions, Andrew. So since you've got the open rooftop parking, I'm assuming there's gonna be lights on it. My question is, and there are residential homes around the surrounding the site. Is that gonna bother any of the homes with maybe any of the site parking or the rooftop parking over by the apartments?
Yeah, so on maybe I'll start with the easier one. So on the surface parking, it's oriented more towards the commercial uses. There are some residential uses down Kidsby a little ways. And so don't anticipate that because it's quite a ways away and there's other commercial properties in between. On the garage itself, yeah, there would be some lighting. We did submit a photometric plan as part of our kind of big package that we submit to the city. So it has to demonstrate that there's no light spillage. And so any, light standards that are around the perimeter in particular are going to have shielding on them. A lot of times now, they're LED. And so it's a very flat fixture and the LED is very directional. And so that technology improved considerably over really the last kind of 10 years. And so we wouldn't anticipate any issues, but we have improved that out as part of we give kind of an initial take and then ultimately with the construction drawings that has to be further vetted.
Great.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we have to ask about Dutch Bros and that horrible interaction.
About what?
Dutch Bros.
Oh, yeah.
So in the neighborhood meeting that we had on Zoom, they did talk about when there was a convention center, we have like the volleyball, and we've got the different types of conventions or tournaments that come in. People are insane and they run across Virginia Street. We see it all the time going to Dutch Brothers. And now with having, another facility or casino or, property there for them to access when their tournaments or their time is over, they are going to run across Virginia Street. And we did have that conversation, or you had that conversation with some of, with the architect, with the owners about what it looks like. And I remember Mr. Stone saying that at this point in time, it wasn't in the plans to do a sky bridge based on the availability of conventions or the number of conventions coming in. So I think a lot of people want to know, how do we remedy this situation with building this great property and having a place for the people in the convention to go without getting run over trying to get there?
No, great point. And so maybe I'll take it in two parts, because, the Sky Bridge, like Brian said, it takes sort of that critical mass of a lot of activity at the convention center, a lot of people coming across to really start to justify that. That's not something that we're dismissing at this point. I mean, that could be in the future. But right now, and I'll go back to, kind of this traffic consideration. The traffic signal at Cooley and Virginia Street creates a very safe pedestrian crossing, right? You don't have to just hit a button and wait for the flashing. You get a red light and you can cross safely. And so that comment actually came from city staff. And so they wanted us to investigate whether some of the warrants, from traffic engineering standpoint, there's several warrants that have to be met in order to justify the traffic signal. So we're evaluating that. And obviously have to work with city staff. They're going to be the ones to say, look, yeah, we do want to signal there. It's their street, it's public street. And so.
I do have a question though. Would it be possible to even just do a pedestrian bridge? And people, even if they do have the signal, and we know the conventions are very long with how you can exit. People just sometimes are lazy, don't want to walk down, to where the signal is. I mean, I guess it would warrant something, or maybe food for thought for later, but just doing maybe not a giant sky bridge, but even just a pedestrian bridge up and over Virginia Street that would encourage people to, maybe use that for that. It's a little bit further south. For a convention, I just know we've all been there and they come out and they run around like crazy people. So, I would just like to see, with having a property here, trying to eliminate maybe some concerns or some potential issues coming up, on the forefront of it. And just something for you guys to consider as you get closer to that. And maybe it warrants us, somebody just kind of keeping an eye out how many people run across Virginia Street when there's a volleyball tournament. And then in the meantime, while that's Dutch Brothers, we're gonna put the signal over there, but it's just it's just a crazy corner.
It is, I mean, yes.
I think I've encouraged them to consider a purchase.
Nervous because it doesn't.
I mean,
They've been fine.
Public parks.
Dutch Brothers wants to give it up.
It's
moving into the casino, like they put in Starbucks at Harris recently and so on.
I mean, I know, and I know you guys are working on that with the city staff, so.
I'll speak to it really briefly. My name is Brooke Oswald. I'm a planner with the city of Reno. That Dutch Brothers comes under a special use permit or conditional use permit. And so we have seen a fair amount of enforcement and are working through that. Our biggest thing we're seeing is sort of backing out onto Virginia and the impacts we're having to traffic. And so, as we kind of look through that, there's other alternatives of they have an entitlement to that property. The city does have the right to look at that. So I think there's remedy and we are very aware of the impacts there and continuing to look at that. So, I think one of the things we're seeing with this project specifically generating maybe not as much traffic as Dutch Brothers.
Yeah.
But we are seeing that turn pocket lane, right? We're actually creating that space to create that turn for cars to slow down to make that turn. And we're not anticipating the queuing in this thing. Unfortunately, we are seeing those issues with Dutch Brothers, but I think we're looking at solutions or possible solutions on that.
And just for everyone in the room, the NAB reviewed the Dutch Brothers. The NAB brought up all of these issues prior to the Dutch Brothers being built. And they just either weren't integrated or weren't addressed fully. So I'm just saying, these folks do know the area very well and can anticipate issues. And so it's just a good reminder that we were, not we, because I don't participate other than just chatting here, but they could see the challenges. And then it came and they were exactly what they said. So it's just something to be aware of.
Certainly, and with that, I'd just like to add, I am the planner on this case. So please, if you do have additional things thinking about tonight or the public in general, please reach out to me. And shoot me an email or send me a phone message and I'll either get back to you or, any comments are great to have as I move forward on this and something that we may avoid. So thank you.
I just have two last things, that the right turn coming out of where the Uber list and drop off.
Yep.
With the people coming off of that right turn from Virginia Street onto Kitsky,
This one,
that might be a little.
that was another comment from city staff.
Yeah, so
that we're working.
the right in, I think is no problem. I think the right out could be problematic.
I think it might be the opposite
So,
ultimately.
or maybe
We're
slowing
looking at it.
slowing the
So,
traffic down
yeah.
going, but with the people that is that corner is a little bit difficult.
Yep.
Right there, so, obviously.
And that's why I highlighted those three.
Yeah.
Those are the three areas that city staff raised that, hey, we need to probably look at these and work through them. So that's on the list to work through this.
And lastly, my comment is, with Elevation Entertainment coming in and wanting to do, obviously they want to do an upscale project, and for them, one thing I would like to see them is having some kind of attractions or enticing the public, the citizens and the community to come and utilize the facility. Because we all know that all of us that have lived here for a very, very long time, we have to have a purpose. A lot of times we have to have a purpose to go to, if we're going to the Atlantis because we have a meeting or we're going to meet somebody at the steakhouse, or, a lot of times our residents and our community members are not patrons of our casino properties. And this is one of the few that we have in the south of sort of Tamarack and then the Atlantis. This is the next one that's being built, and it would just be nice to see for this particular property to be enticing and for our community members to want to visit it. You've got a shopping center right there, but for people to go visit it and it not just be for
What, out of town visitation?
or visitation,
Yeah,
right?
not just
It'd have another location that it entices our community members to want to utilize it. And I guess my last question is, and perhaps you can probably answer this, is what is they're looking for that they want? What is their demographic that they're really shooting for?
So maybe I'll start and I'll kick it over to maybe Ryan if you want to talk about this. But, maybe to your kind of comments about attracting locals, I think that gets to sort of programming that has been proposed, right? 6 restaurants, the outdoor space with the indoor outdoor dining. I don't know about you, but that, right, when I'm trying to, my wife and I are trying to pick somewhere to eat, it's like, oh, I want to sit outside in the summer. And those opportunities are unfortunately kind of few and far between, or not great spaces and stuff, sidewalk or whatever. So I think some of that is getting to, those desires that's a local to find those places. That's what's going to attract people, right? It's the restaurant. But maybe Ryan, if you want to talk about kind of what your demographic is.
Yeah, please. Ryan Stone from Elevation. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight and hearing the project. We're trying to build a project for Reno, for the local community. That's really our intention from day one. We're not thinking about tourists or any of that. We feel like Reno is at a point now where the city is on fire and it really does and can support a project like this. I was in Austin, Texas about 4 years ago. It was winter, it was cold, and a friend of mine took me to a place called Cosmic Coffee. And it's this outdoor coffee, beer garden, food truck place, not really kind of off the beaten path. And it was cold and it was packed. There were people from all demographics. There were people working during the day, holding meetings, having dates. It was just an outdoor park, and that park thing seems to be replicated all over the country. Dallas has it. We've seen it in Fort Worth. And that's what we are thinking about with this public park. It is for the public, it's for the community. We're going to do everything we can to program that and have the community enjoy it. I've seen it all over the country, and that's really going to be the heartbeat of this project. I think we're gonna spend a lot of time thinking about the restaurants and how we design these restaurants for the local community to enjoy. We've spent some time in the community. We've heard a lot about, sushi and a great steak restaurant, and, a food hall, and that's what you see in the project right now. So it is our intention to build this for the local community, so.
Thank you so much, Brian, for that. I really appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, Heather reminded me, in our other casinos in California, doing these meeting rooms, having these community meeting rooms, we've invited the community to have, use our meeting rooms. We don't charge for the meeting rooms. And that's really been, one of the impetus of building our business is bringing the community in for these meeting rooms. And, we'll be doing the same thing here. So that's our intention. We're building it for Reno. And, I think we've done a pretty good job so far, but I'm telling you, we're open to suggestions. So please, what are we missing?
Thank you. And thank you so much for asking. We really appreciate that. We've gone through quite a bit of time and so if you would like to add additional comments, Tyler, where can they get a comment?
The public comment forms are located at the front up there.
Project comment form.
Oh, they're located on the agenda. At the top, there's a link there for the public comments, so you can submit that for the planning commission.
And where do they
And
find the agenda?
it's located on the reno.gov website. It's reno.gov/meetings. You can find tonight's meeting. The agenda is posted on there. And then after the meeting, all the comments received here and the agenda packet will be uploaded there as well.
Thank you so much. And our planning commission and our planners, they do take your comments to heart and they take them very seriously. So I encourage everybody to please submit your project comment forms. And then also it helps the city staff and also it helps, with the applicants with trying to, move forward with meeting everybody's needs to make sure that they hit everybody's concern with these projects.
Can I say one final thing?
Of course.
Andy, I'm gonna direct this to you, but for everybody associated with this in the room. I think our NAB probably has a little bit of a reputation of asking a lot of questions, and I think often they veer toward the negative. And I think it's only because we all care about the community. And I will only speak for myself here, but I think this is a super exciting project. I mean, it's a blighted area. It's the right area for it. I'm glad that we waited this long for the right project for it. I think we all want the bits around the edges to all be done correctly, obviously, but this is awesome that this is going in here. I think it's going to be good for our city. I think it's going to be good for this area. I think it's going to be good for tourism. It just couldn't be better situated where it is. I still think it's weird it looks over the Walmart, but this is really, really cool. This is awesome. And I hope everybody involved knows that at the end of the day, they're probably gonna hear a lot of negative comments and criticisms, and hopefully we get past those and get to a good place. But hopefully everybody's excited to do this and from the community to do this.
Well, and I support Tyler with that as well, because those two box stores have been vacant for years, and we are seeing now the property becoming blighted and with them becoming homeless camps, and it's becoming dangerous for our shoppers and our residents. So it's nice to see a project coming in, that's going to benefit not only our visitors, but also benefits our community members as well.
I really appreciate you saying that. I mean, I've been doing this for almost 25 years, and this is a really exciting project.
Yeah.
And I'm speaking on behalf of Elevation. They're really excited to be able to present this to you. And I know you have a full agenda, and I thank you for indulging me in my very long-winded presentation. But there's a lot of meat here, and so appreciate you giving us the time.
Well, and I'm gonna say something too. I mean, I will just be very candid. I didn't support the last casino that was proposed here very specifically for one reason, and that was the lack of rooms. I felt like you're taking up a space across from the convention center, and the things that go in here should be supporting the convention center. It should be a symbiotic relationship. They should work together. And this project, on the other hand, has that and more. As compared, you've been able to add the extra space, so build a bigger facility. And so that's something that I'm very excited to see.
Yeah.
You haven't turned your back on the convention center, you're embracing it, and it's why you're there. So I think that's, says a lot.
Work, did you have?
Once again, I just want to encourage this group to do those project reviews. They're very important to us as staff, both the critical and the supportive. Those become part of the public record. They're looked at by staff and help us make our decisions, but also eventually become that part of that public record and go to planning commission. So once again, this group's always really great about providing great critical thought on this and having that in writing and having that supportive. I can take, what we have tonight, but having that is really important for us as we form that record.
Tyler, could you scroll to the last page? If anybody has any additional questions for Andy, or they have any questions for Elevation, you're welcome to direct your comments, your questions, calls, emails to Andy's information there, and he'll get back with you immediately if you've got additional comments or questions for him.
Perfect. Thank you all so much.
And thank you so much, Ryan, and everybody for coming out here. We appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody.
Joining.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks. Have a good one.
That was the warm up. Here we go.
And let me ask, Tyler, can you move the projector back so it is bigger on the screen? It was there because you have the tables together, but now we have room to move it back.
Please.
It's the Carmela Ranch.
Yes.
Multiple towers.
I'm used to these.
No, it's.
I was trying to help. Okay. Madam Chair, I'll go ahead and ask them to exit your area. So you
If anybody needs to use the restroom, please we'll take a 5-minute break here. That was back here.
Do you want to recess for 5 minutes?
Yeah, we'll take a 5 minute.
You're going to your meeting for your Zoom so that you're recessing.
For everyone on the Zoom, we're going to take a 5-minute recess. We will be back after 5 minutes. Thank you.
I'll sit up there.
We're going to go ahead and get started here for everyone virtual.
All right, thank you so much, everybody, for buying that little break. So I kind of get refocused here. We're going to jump back into our project. We're going to be going to the next one, which is LDC 230031 Vintage at Redfield Major Deviation. A request has been made for a major deviation to reduce the required 12-foot front yard setbacks by 11.8%, resulting in a front yard setback of 10 feet 7 inches, and increase the required 2-to-1 building height setback ratio by 50%, resulting in a 3-to-1 building height setback ratio to allow for the construction of a senior affordable housing apartment complex. The 2.646 acre site is located on the northeast corner of the intersection at Redfield Parkway and Baker Lane. The subject site is within the mixed-use urban MU zoning district and has a master plan land use designation of suburban mixed use. So with that, welcome. How are you this evening?
Thank you. Great. My name is Dane Hilliard with Green Street. And this whole process is unique because we didn't know we had to do this. We started in plan check 6-7 months ago. And Donna made a point in the process that we knew we were going to need this. We didn't know the new code required it. So basically be very brief and very last. This is our building. It's hard to see up there, but that first dotted line is allowed by code. So as you go taller, the setback is reduced.
He has another.
So if we were doing this first line, we wouldn't have to be prevented at all because the project's allowed by right. This line is what we're proposing for a 5-story, which faces the side of the building that we're requesting the deviation. So it's pretty simple. What would be, we'll lose all the upper floor units in this section of the building. The deviation doesn't happen. And we've gone through, the plans are basically approved by the city already. The building permit is almost ready. This came up in planning about a month ago. We were aware of it, that this setback changed as you got higher. So it's news to me after doing a lot of projects here. The building itself, if we switch to this one, let's see here, this is the perspective, this is Baker Lane, Electrical Parkway. So the corner we're looking at, right backwards.
Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, go back to the one. I think the mirror image.
It probably is.
I think that's probably Redfield.
I think this is Redfield, this is
Yeah.
Baker Lane. So what we're talking about is losing the upper story on the Baker Lane side. The information and the write-up is incorrect. We do meet the setback requirements we exceeded on Redfield Parkway for more than 12 feet, so we don't need a deviation for that. So what we're requesting is this upper level. We have two options. Right now, we have 9-foot units, 9 foot tall, which we like to provide to our residents. We could drop those down to 8 feet and potentially accommodate that line, but the units would have an 8-foot ceiling, which is, as you know, pretty well.
Through the whole building, Dane, or?
Yeah, it would be through the whole building. So our request is to allow us to proceed with deviation, at the 9-foot units and keep that upper floor the way it is.
So Dane, what is, I'm a little bit confused too. What is the requirement? You have to have a so many
Move that for
foot
a second.
setback?
As you, let's go back to the slide. Yeah, it's new to me. I was not aware of this.
Okay,
So we were already through plan check and planning stuff.
right, but does Brooke want to explain this? What?
Yeah, maybe I can look at it really quick. So the description you have tonight, it states two things. It's stating a setback and a step back. So as was mentioned, they meet the setback requirements. So that'll be changed as it moves and goes forward. But when I initially looked at, we were trying to get in that MU, we go from a property line, we actually go from the back of the curb, which they meet their thing. Now, step back is different. That came in with our new adoption of our Title 18 code. What that says is once you hit a certain height, you've got to start stepping the building back because of that increasing height. And so it's kind of.
So
a
that has
roundabout.
less
So
impact on the
on
neighbors?
the neighboring, the
But
intent of
this-
that is the lessening the impact on those neighboring properties. Now, we have a unique situation. A lot of times we'll see adjacent, which means, that those property lines are gonna abut,
Got it.
right? Now, with the right of way or a public street like that, those are still considered adjacent properties, so this comes into play. But what is unique, we do have a roadway in between those, and so that does allow a little bit more of a setback there. And so we'll be examining this. They want a major deviation allows for up to a 50% deviation from standard code. They can do up to 50% per state law. So they're asking for that deviation to reduce that step back so they can bring their building straight up versus having to step back as they go higher.
So how wide is the road? How wide is Baker?
I would imagine that's probably a 20, usually we're anywhere between a 24 to 30 foot sort of right away between that. I don't have the exact.
Yeah, I don't have either. There's parking on both sides allowed.
But will there after your building is built?
The city staff had us actually locate the entry over here instead of Redfield. So this is an EVA access only. When working with staff, they didn't want access on Redfield, so we oriented the building with the entrance off Baker. That's the main entry to the building. Something else the city asked us to do, which we did a shadow study, which is done the shortest day of the year at 10 a.m., which I guess is the longest shadow.
Yeah.
And this is the shadow line. So we don't touch the property lines across the street from the shadow. That was, I think, part of the discussion with planning to make sure that they were able to consider this. If we were casting a shadow, we wouldn't be. So that shadow study shows that. Donna, to your points, we totally agree. We definitely want to have some kind of, flashing light crosswalk type thing here because a lot of our residents do not have cars. And they will be walking right across the street.
It's a danger there.
Yeah, so we're totally up for that. I totally agree with you. That, again, this process didn't really involve that. It really involved this one issue. But we're definitely, we want to do that. We have about half our residents do not own vehicles. And a lot of them still work, so they might have some casino people that want a casino down the street.
Are you putting in sidewalks, Dave? I know there's no
Yes.
sidewalk
We
there.
have sidewalks going all directions. We also enhanced, which I didn't bring a display, I should have. We enhanced the landscaping. We doubled the trees on the side of the trees on this side, to help buffer between the single family homes. Two single family homes that are primarily like right here. This one's kind of kitty corner, but it is. So,
And I know in your other senior living, you fenced it. What's your plan here?
yes. It's,
Oh, you are?
yep,
I mean, is it a gated entrance? Oh, it
it's
is.
gated. We like that, seniors are more secure, you know,
What's that?
the seniors like that.
Yes.
It's a more secure feeling, especially at night.
Right.
We have a large, I think, again, this project doesn't really. What this meeting is really describing the project that much, but it's 223 units as is. A lot of amenities in this space. We do community gardens, we do outdoor barbecue, dining. Everybody's equal kind of a walking trail from inside here, so they have their own space. And the whole thing's designed for seniors, so it's, every unit has its own washer and dryer, its full kitchen. We do solar, assuming a New Energy refunds their program. And so utilities are included. The residents only have to pay one bill. No utility bill, which is nice. To your point on the colors, this is not dark color roof. This is just showing the difference in heights. These are pop-ups in the building. The whole roof will be white. It'll be predominantly covered with solar panels. Everything else, as far as the project goes, has pretty much been approved.
Dane, I have two crazy questions, maybe. One is an issue you know about at the senior living that we're dealing with at Crossings at over by Damani Ranch Parkway, and I see a tiny little brown spot, and I didn't know if that's like a dog relief area or
Over here,
I see it at the far, corner.
I have a landscape plan. I don't recall.
Well, I hope you do include one and make it a little bit bigger than the one over at the Crossings,
Yeah.
because that has 230 units. And you said this one has 200,
223 as with the deviation, it'll drop down to 203 though.
okay. And that's a little tight for a dog relief area for them. So I'm just hoping you can accommodate that on the site. And the number two, and this is a surprise and something we're talking about changing our building code, which is after this last power outage. I think you know the elevator in the senior living, a separate electrical, it went out and the corridor lights went out, not the heating in the units. But we're just looking at possibly requiring generators like they do for nursing homes, assisted living, hospital. But the reason is, you know, the senior residents could not, there are some of them wheelchairs, walkers, they could not get up and down.
This thing is a 4-story. I think we're required on a 5-story to do that.
I don't know.
For the.
Backup power for the elevator.
You know, I don't know, that will come either to our building or, and I'm not quite sure what to recommend, but it will probably have to have some sort of.
It was just a recommendation, after what we just went through.
Yeah.
I worked really hard to get the power back on at Crossings sooner than almost anywhere because it was senior living, was 230 off one power pole. Whereas, you know, you go fix another power pole, you might have 5 or 10 residents off of it.
Right.
But this had 230 units and, you know, unfortunately there was, you know, a death. I don't know if you were aware, but yes, on the stairs during the power outage with a senior carrying groceries. And we just want to avoid that. That's an example. And also just people couldn't get down that there was REMSA was called during the power outage. Several people had medical and REMSA, of course, didn't have an elevator use. So they had to carry the patients up and down the stairs.
We definitely, and 5-story again, I think it might be.
Okay.
And we, instead of doing a generator, which is constant maintenance and using tool, we do backup batteries.
Backup battery,
Yeah.
whatever.
So we would definitely put
That's a cool idea.
that. Yeah, great idea.
Okay. So those are just two recommendations from my experiences over at the other.
Surrounding it is multifamily, those are all apartments, those are
Yeah.
apartments. So this is the single family, the deviation, step back requirement was triggered by.
Is that, you say it's gonna be gated, is it, are they gonna have an access code to get in there?
Yep. They do.
I think that's a good idea for that person personally.
The building very secure, again, a lot of these are elderly.
Yes.
There's all the entrances are secured. There will be exits and entries allowed out here to the sidewalk. So I have to walk all the way out to the front to go around.
I was gonna ask that question with the fencing.
Yeah, there'll be a man gate with a fob.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. This is not the landscape plan, this is really the shadow study, that's what I'm looking at. Other than that, definitely Donna, your idea, of course, is really good. I live down pretty close to you, and the flashing crosswalk things work.
Yeah.
The blink all the time don't work. The ones that
Right.
come on only when someone's there.
Right.
So something like that in here, I think would be something we would definitely want. Because they
They're
want,
only $15,000, including the curb cuts.
it's not bad.
So you already have to probably have a curb cut
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
And Kurt was here, right? Sitting right here. Don't know where he went, but he's our traffic guy and he does them. So,
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we definitely want one, because they will be, you know, the people at crossings, they're constantly walking to wall. It's their daily outing. And there's so many amenities over there. Yes,
What? When I drive down Baker, from my impression is that the properties to your north are more like MF 14 than MF 30.
these are lower density apartments older up here, they're like maybe eighties. So I think they're 2-story.
I'm sure they're two-story. I'm just wondering what the density is. It's a shadow thing, right? Because you don't
Yeah,
get it you
shadow.
don't get it out until you're shadowing them or something.
We need your help on the shadow study for planning, but it only is an issue against single family property, not against multifamily, right?
Not true.
Correct. What we're doing with them, because they are asking for this deviation, this isn't necessarily a requirement, but we did request that to make sure that we're looking at those impacts of that height. So it's not necessarily a standard requirement, but because city staff felt that it may have an impact and could impact those properties, we wanted to have an analysis of that done. And so this is what they provided, is showing that how those studies are done, that those properties won't be impacted on those larger shadow days by creating shadow or other issues there.
Well, that's what I understand, but if the code actually says shall not shade public parks or residences, and the out is like MF 21 and MF 30, but if it was MF 14, they still couldn't cast a shadow on.
On the surrounding on the back.
Yeah.
Now I can bring that up with Leah Brock is actually the planner on this and how she analyzed that and her determination on that.
Maybe
So
they are MF 21, I don't know, but the code actually says
Yeah.
MF 14 would be subject to the.
would be, yes, you are correct.
I think it's higher density that's allowed.
Yeah, well, no, yeah, and on how that is, and you're probably under that SMU and a similar zoning that you are, that MU zoning. So this is unique in where we have that MU butting up against that single family directly on that side. A lot of times you'll see a step down zoning, so you'd see a mixed use going to an MF 30. This is just that unique situation where we do see those coming up, hence the.
So does the SMU end at Baker Lane or go all the way across?
I don't have the zoning map up right now.
I think this is SFR.
Okay.
That's a single family up against that MU. And so that's where we have those adjacency standards and some of those things.
And the other thing is that we have all the financing in place. The city of Reno has given us their blessing for the bond allocation. We have the home funds to require. We also have the state ARPA money. So we have the funding in place, which is not that easy to do these days.
So don't you have to have a public hearing to get your conditional use?
If it wasn't this deviation, there'd be no public hearing required.
So this
Well, but
will
because
require
of
a
that-
public hearing.
So
So
this will,
yeah,
what I'm requesting will, yeah.
so this is scheduled to be heard at planning commission next Wednesday at 6 p.m.
I'm just wondering how come everybody keeps saying it's already all approved and stuff, and it hasn't been to public hearing.
It still requires a public hearing and will be reviewed by the planning commission. And then obviously through that, there is the appeal period and possible appeal to the city council.
Yeah, what I would say is, without the step back reform that we were aware of, it's going to be something that would have been.
Oh, yeah.
So it's that new section of code that when it was reviewed through the building, when they submitted during the building, they say you actually triggered. Or this does not meet the standard. And so we do allow within section of our code, we call it flexibility. So that's a variance or minor deviation, major deviation. So those are, that's why we're seeing this coming in. They designed the building, but it didn't meet the code. And so there's some flexibility to allow for these deviations from.
There's also a 55-foot height issue. If you go above 55 foot, it triggers public hearings. We kept it below that at 50. Again, so the step back popped up in plan check. That's when we first came aware of it, which was probably a month ago.
Not under the old code.
Yeah, I've done a lot of stuff.
You didn't have it in the
I
old
understand new code better.
You had the option.
So I know that the seniors have less driving, but they still drive, and I
Yep.
think like the parking lot at Crossings is pretty full. What do you have here for parking?
I think we're at 0.6, which I think is similar to crossings. The Crossings demographic is a little bit more mobile.
Oh.
Compared to Sanctuary. So there's more cars per unit in South Reno than there is at Sanctuary. I think this will be more similar, we think this will be more similar to Sanctuary as far as the amount of cars. So it's, Crossings has, a lot of people that are working.
Do you have an older cutoff, like 60 or something? An older cutoff,
As
not
far as-
55, but,
It's 55.
but why do you think they're,
I think it's locations.
okay,
Yeah,
like if you're out in the suburbs, it's
Yeah.
more people with cars.
yeah. We're doing one on Spanish Springs and we added a lot of parking to it, way more, because we think a lot more of them are still driving. And again, they don't drive at peak times. Typically, so it's nice. But as far as the casino goes and all that, we'd be happy to work with those guys too, if there's a way to do a crosswalk that helps both projects or something.
Any other questions? Thank you so much for coming out.
Sure, thank you guys.
Giving us a little snapshot of the project. We really appreciate
Yeah,
that.
it's nice to be back in the NAB in person.
For sure.
Once again, I just want to mention this will be going to planning commission next Wednesday evening. The staff report will be available Friday for review and the recommendation on that. I think so. If you do have comments, it may be better. You can do the project review point things, but it may be better just to send an email directly to planning commission now. And that will make sure that they get that and they'll read those at that point.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Moving to the next project, it's going to be LDC 23-00034, Rotor Investments of Nevada Self-Storage. A request has been made for a conditional use permit to establish a 523 unit mini warehouse facility, an existing tenant space within the property known as Reno Town Mall. The 15.94 acre project site is located in southwest Peckham Lane and 290 feet west of its intersection with South Virginia Street. The project site is located within mixed use urban zoning district and has a master plan land use designation of suburban mixed use. Hi.
Well, hello.
How are you?
I'm doing pretty good.
It's so nice to
Yourself?
see you.
Yeah.
Of course. I know. It's so nice to see you.
Well,
again.
good to see you.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, well, just so you guys know, Rob used to be the property owner of the Flood Management Authority where Naomi had our
She was
office.
lieutenant.
We were a tenant in there, and so.
That's right.
Yeah, so welcome to our now. It's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah, you know, I didn't recognize you. I was sitting behind you, but I didn't look right at your face. So, yeah, it's good to see you.
So
Been about
welcome.
9 years or so, has it
It's been a minute, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure,
a little
yes.
bit. Well, I'm Rob Roth, and I have owned what was the Old Town Mall and now the Reno Town Mall for 32 years. I was 10 years old when I bought it. In fact, I'm about ready to retire here and let this guy here, my son, take it over. But at any rate, we've owned the property since 1991. And interesting, there's a Fire Creek resort, Fire Creek Crossing Resort, and whatnot. They mentioned, of course, the difficulty with large box users. And we have a large box user at the mall that was actually operated by David Asher. And Dave, of course, at the Sierra. But it's a struggle today. Grocery stores, of course, it's a very competitive time. And Dave was not able to sustain it. We worked with him and worked very hard to try and keep it ongoing. But it's been vacant now for about the past year. But Dave and I were pretty aware that it was not going to do it. Formerly before that, in fact, years ago, it was one of the first Raley's stores. It was the first Raley's store in town. And then Raley's wanted to give it up, and then they created a food source. That company basically has disappeared off now. So food source is no longer in existence. And then Dave came in to try and see if we could keep the grocery store concept, but it didn't work. Dave basically closed it here about a year ago. And we had contacted numerous other prospective tenants, but unfortunately, they've not had the ability to release to a purely retail. And a little history on the mall, because Reno Town Mall is really no longer a retail, but it's a community center. So we're really not dealing with retail users as much. In fact, they're actually in the minority in the property. We do have 7 retailers. Our largest is Burger King, and they're right out in South Virginia. And so essentially what we're seeing is we've gone to community service. We have the Sierra View Library, which has been there for 25 years. I was the one that put them into the building and have worked with them over the years, and we very much have valued their tenancy. It's a community, so the library fits in very well. Other tenants that we have, Access Healthcare. We have Nevada New Horizon Learning Center. Don't want to leave anybody out here. Nevada State Job Connect and RSCBA headquarters, obviously right across from me. Thanks. We have Cross Point Community Church. We do have 7 restaurants, and so I noted we have 1 more restaurant in Fire Creek Crossing, and they're all doing really well. So that has been very good. That also has put a lot more traffic issues into the mall. So we were approached by StoreQuest because of the significant amount of multifamily homes that, multifamily apartments and whatnot that are going in that really don't have adequate storage, a place to put your kayaks, a place to put your skis, a place to put things. So they're really looking for, StoreQuest approached us with the concept of climate controlled inside and something that is close to the residences that are living there that have this need. It's a pretty significant lead, and it has not been filled by any means with our project. There is still quite, and they did a full feasibility study was done to make sure this need was something that was obviously important for the community. And we filled about 20% of that need. So it gives you an idea of how much in that area the community is demanding this. And just to let you know, because we of course evaluated StoreQuest, they're really, I think, the leader in climate control self-storage. They have 285 locations across the country, and they have they're all run on-site management office on the premises, and they do go to a they have 24-hour security, they have cameras, monitors, and they do prefer to go into settings where they are retail. You'll see a StoreQuest that's down on R, somewhere in the south down there. StoreQuest is there in that shopping center. That is their preference, and the way they like to get into the community is through that type of environment. So next picture, there is the layout of the mall, and this is Burlington out here. We have Dave Asher is also our tenant that has the Nevada Marketplace, and he occupies a good part of the mall. Sierra View Library down here, and then the annex. We have a number of restaurants in here. We have a restaurant here, which coming soon will be the Cup Cafe, and they're just a really great group of people. And let's see here. It gives a good overview for that. And then StoreQuest will be taking over, and nothing on the exterior of the building will change. They will just be moving in on the inside. What we're doing for them is very simple. This is just tenant improvements inside the building. So the building doesn't change. If down the road, retail is moving back and everybody wants to have a 60,000 square foot building, we can obviously just take the TIs out. There's not that much TIs to be done here. And we can put in a retail tenant if that ever comes back. Problem is that's very hard to do right now. So that's why we're doing this. And I think it will tie in very well with the community since we've gone more to a community center. So next slide. Okay, this is what is plan. This is a little narrower than the Iowa's that we're planning. 525 self-storage units. And again, like I said, that would be accommodating about 20% of the current demand in the market. So it definitely will not fill the bill for everything, but it will be very closely located to the city, of course, has approved a great deal of multifamily housing and apartments. So this will help in that filling the self-storage needs. It will be all climate controlled and which is of course already existing. So that's very easy to do. We have all that before. And let's see here. Something else I can think of here that I'm gonna try and cover. I think I did mention, but they will have security on site. They will also have TV monitors and cameras that will keep an eye on all of the interior of the premises. So it'll be very secure. So we think that's going to very much help our retailers, which some of our retailers are open until 1 or 2 o'clock at night, but we will appreciate having on-site security 24 hours a day. That will be a real big plus for us.
Is it fulfilling 24 hours? Yeah.
StoreQuest doesn't, they actually operate it during certain hours, and I think it will close and it will reopen in the morning. But I think certain people will have security cards. But StoreQuest runs it, they kind of manage it. So from that standpoint, it's a high security facility and they do have security. So if anyone wants to come there, again, I kind of speak a little bit more for them than I probably shouldn't. But with their 24-hour security, if someone was to go there, someone would be there because of the security. And again, I'm not running that show, that's really their jobs. Okay, next slide. And that will be the only exterior change to what we have here. Dave Asher's Sierra Foods with a little mountain, a little Sierra Mountain there. That will remain the little mountain. StoreQuest thought that was phenomenal. And then these items here, and by the way, I might comment that our farmers market is not going to be gone. Because Dave, who is of course there with Nevada Marketplace, plans to bring the farmers market and we'll be doing it inside the mall and possibly out in the parking lot. We gain with the reduction in the need for parking, we would have some areas there that Dave could utilize for having it a little street fair farmers market. And then in addition to that, right next door, we have a little convenience market, ABC Market, and they're going to triple in size. And then they will be picking up, it's a convenience grocery store. So they'll be coming in and expanding. In fact, I think they brought some of the trade fixtures to close the store. And they're going to about 2.5 times, 3 times what they were before. And they'll be selling groceries there as a convenience. And I think that pretty well covers it. I'd love to have any questions or any input.
Go ahead, Donna, please.
I'm a little confused, but I understand where you're going with this, but to me, it just looks like 16 acres of dead space.
It looks like what?
16 acres of dead space that can't engage the community in any kind of way. And then you have the parking lot, which hopefully you can do something with, but if you don't, it's just continuing on with the one to the north on the other side of Peckham, and it's just those kind of masses of parking lots don't do anything to enhance neighborhoods and communities. So I guess I would say I would hope you can make money. I'd be happy to see you do that. I'd be happy to see Dave have the markets and stuff going on. But if that use gets permitted, there's a reason why it's conditional in the zone, right? Close to housing and everything. So to get an approval of that, I could fully support it if you had some sort of attendant plan for bringing people in, like what you're talking about doing, but so that I'm not thinking that for 10 months of the year, I'm going to be looking at 2 massive parking lots as if they're one unit and that's my neighborhood now.
Let me, let's go back to the slide on the overall site plan. I'll kind of highlight a few things that were.
There.
Oh, there we go. We have over the past year and a half or so, we have brought in 4 additional restaurants here. And then we put an outside dining patio. And that now fills up in the evening. And we're putting the Cup Cafe in this location and using this courtyard for their outside dining. So we're gonna see quite a bit of parking through here that will come out to probably about here, which will be about 1/3 of what we had before for the grocery store. And our parking lot in front of the mall with the tenants that we have, and we're fully leased, so that's the good news. That entirely fills up from pretty much from about here all the way over, across out to the front. So the only spot, and that's kind of the area where Dave might be able to have his outdoor farmers market, is kind of right in front here, where we gain parking from where the grocery store had. So we'll be able to gain some area out front there, which Dave wants to try and use for his farmers market. I think the idea of a farmers market maybe on Wednesday and a Saturday and a Sunday, something like that.
I'm kind of not following it because I just never see that many cars there and I buy there probably 5-7 times a week.
It does.
Except for along the
There's-
restaurant.
This is the first row.
Yeah, that's always packed right there.
Yeah, and then this row here and this row here
Yeah,
with the restaurants.
right. But
Yeah.
then everything in
And then
front of Burlington is packed.
What's that? Yes.
In front of Burlington
Yes.
and the bank were packed.
Yes, right over here. The thing about Burlington, this is the fairly limited parking here, so a lot of the Burlington clientele do end up over in here and in here. And then our mall tenants run across, and that leaves about 4 or 5 rows that, like you mentioned, that are open.
I'm gonna say, by the way, I always see, when I go there to vote or whatever, there are always cars there.
Yeah.
Actually, I think it's, and the parking lot is there. The question is, what can we put around it to be useful? And let me tell you why I'm interested in this. I've got 100 boxes of legal files sitting in storage all the way across town, okay? This is gonna be a lot closer to me. And I'm gonna tell you right now, you put this in, I will take a look at this because it's a lot closer to where I am. Parking lot's going to be there. But I think, and I know they're building storage all over the city, but it tends to be north and south of there. I think this may be a useful place to have that for people like me have a commercial need for storage.
And that's why StoreQuest is asking to come here, is because this is in the backyard. This is at the doorstep of all the homes going in. They don't have a place for this. They don't have a place for storage. And they're looking to have things like kayaks come in and out of there. They're looking at things that skis and all the things that you would normally not necessarily put in your living room. And they don't have a place to put it out in their garage. So it really does serve a very important purpose. And for storage, the idea is to try and get it as close to your home as you can get it. Most people don't like to get in the car and drive for 4 or 5 miles or whatever they have to do. They love to be on the corner. And of course, the Park Lane Mall, no longer Park Lane Mall, there's about 12 or 1,400 or whatever units there. And this will give a very convenient location for people to have that. And of course, climate control.
I also think if kind of going back to like the Fire Creek with these vacant box buildings, these big structures, we have several of them around our community that are just sitting vacant. So if we can find a use for some of these large box stores that have been vacant for years and years, and obviously this one has been vacant for years and years, but if it provides a service for the community, which it looks like this does, maybe it's not ideal that it's a retail that invites the public in for a service, but it does provide a level of service. It's not a, kind of like not a person to person reciprocal service, but at least it provides some kind of use for the building. So the building doesn't get blighted, and the parking lot, obviously I would have to maintain the parking lot with it, but it does provide a use for our community because we've done the community cleanups. And we know that there's a lot of people that have a lot of stuff around and a lot of apartments. We found that there's a lot of apartments that have extra stuff sitting around. So I think it does lend itself to utilizing a big box that's now vacant. And then also the surrounding properties and apartments, it allows them a use to put some of their stuff, so then it doesn't end up either in front yards or on streets and things like that, and or in house case. You know, like I said, it doesn't seem like ideal, like a service exchange or providing something like we would think like a grocery store, but you know, in our community, it's nice to see that we're finally, there's getting some movement on some of these large properties with that have these box stores. The old, what is it? It's been sitting there for a million years now. Circus City Good Guys, the one across the street by,
Kmart on the other side.
no, the one that's over there by like, where Nordstrom's Rack is. That was a,
Good Guys.
was that the Good Guys? It's been vacant.
Oh, yeah, good. I think that
So-
was good, guys.
so
It
it's-
was
so-
over across from the Atlantis. I can't remember it now.
So it's good to see something coming into a large box store like that, that does provide some level of service for my community, that's my opinion, to help people with their stuff, because we've done the community cleanups and utilizing our space.
And that's exactly what we were thinking when this came along and StoreQuest had this interest, and we were very impressed with the caliber of their facilities. They're very nice. But we're looking at this as a community center now where people convenience, they can go there. And we have added the restaurants and we brought in with the library there. We're trying to provide something that is a real benefit to the community. There's a high demand for this. This is something really needed in our community. And the reality of it is we can't find a retailer that's going to do that. And so we're really trying to do something that's going to help our community.
But I do think there needs to be parameters where just anybody can't go in there really late at night. I mean, we're having issues with stuff happening in our community late at night with vacant spaces and, you know, or them coming in, rolling up the roll up during the storage unit and having a party, things like that. So there.
Well, this of course is run by StoreQuest, so that would not be allowed. They run that 24 hours a day. But it's really security at night after a certain time. They'll determine, like for instance, if there's a really big demand that people need to come access it in the evening at 10 or 11. Remember our retail, our restaurants, they're open, in some cases, the Hong Kong Diner there and Prost Bar, the beer and wine garden. They're open till midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. But StoreQuest will operate the facility based on what they see as their demand period for when they need to be. So it might be open till 9, might be
And
open till 10.
that's fine, but I think it just needs to not be a 24-hour access.
All the StoreQuest facilities are actually 10 o'clock is.
They're closing.
Okay.
Yeah,
So anybody, I don't know.
yeah, I wasn't aware. But they operate, they have an office, and they're there. No one can just walk in there and go have a party, because actually that's not allowed. But,
Maybe there might be some.
Yes.
I'm in the exact same place as Mimi. Like, I hate the idea of this prime real estate being turned into storage, but like, get it. I'd rather it be at the same point than being a vacant building for the next 3 years. My ask, because you guys are here today, would be if you guys could take a look at the parking lot, find opportunities to make it look better.
but we're putting in a charging station.
I mean, like
Tesla charging
green wise. Like
Yeah.
it just, I live in South Reno where it's very green. I hate coming over here because of this parking lot. And I'm so glad you guys are here today. Because I feel like there are such simple opportunities to fix it. If you guys, because we're talking about the fact that you're gonna have lack of parking now because it's not a retail store. If you guys can rip out every 20th space and put a tree in, that would be
We're
incredible.
gonna put 10 trees in our existing islands that are there. And there's, I think, 2 trees now. We're gonna put 10 trees in our islands, all in front here. Across there.
I think that's super helpful, but also just looking at that huge, I mean, you guys live here too, looking at that huge sea of pavement, it just sucks. And there are such great opportunities to really green that up and like make it an inviting space for the community. I think it would draw more people in. I think people would be excited to be there. I think like when you make it an inviting space, people will come. And right now it's not that. And I hate driving by there because it looks vacant because the parking lot is so dead. If you guys can take this opportunity
to upgrade the parking lot. I think it'd be awesome for that whole part of town, truly. I think it could help others hopefully take note and do the same.
Yeah, and when we did the renovations over at the annex with the restaurants that we've added now in the last year and a half. So a couple of years ago, we re-landscaped all the way across from here and added trees about every 15, 20 feet.
Yeah, it's where I used to do my dry cleaning, so I'm super familiar with it.
Exactly. And so as time goes on, we do this, we re-landscaped all across the front of the mall. It's a little problematic to get irrigation out there across the asphalt because there is none. So that's obviously a challenge. That's pretty pricey.
Yeah, I mean, I could be totally misremembering. The parking lot doesn't seem to be in like the best shape ever. If you guys can just do one long line down a couple rows, a couple pieces that jut out. I mean, I know it's expensive, but like, it'd be such a win for this community.
Well, and over time, we are always trying to upgrade things. So, quite well taken. It's certainly something that we will continue to try and do to make it better because it does invite people to come and enjoy it. And as a community center, obviously that just adds.
Well, to that point, I'm sure you followed the change at Chopper Square, the renovation at that facility, which they're not even calling a mall anymore. But they have done a fair amount to their parking lot, and I think to Tyler's point, it creates a different feel. And it brings in a different customer and it makes people happy to be there. And I don't know, Brooke, what the city's requirements are if you change something like this much, when and which point do you have to upgrade your parking lot?
I might, you can cover it. The work that we're doing here is only just tenant improvements.
I understand.
Yeah, so we aren't really doing.
I
anything.
understand, but it's more to the benefit of your overall mall and ambiance.
Yeah.
But when there's a point at which
We have some points and it's triggered by an investment in the overall structure. We wouldn't, this was looked at, it wouldn't anticipate it that this would trigger those other sort of improvements to be brought up. We are looking at an older, probably originally established in 1970.
1974 was the first buildings and I think fully completed about 1980 or 81.
So we're looking at, under those standards, I think what you do see the opportunity here when we do have those larger parking lots is we're seeing things with reduced parking or modified or those uses. It does create availability for future paths out front and some other things. And those are when we really probably start to see some improvements on that. Obviously, if there are concerns or comments at this point, this is scheduled to be heard next Wednesday at the Planning Commission. That report will be available Friday, but if you do have comments related to what you're saying tonight, send those directly to the Planning Commission.
I'm struggling with two things. One, why are they here? Like, it would be good for the group to understand what triggered them coming here, just like the last one. What triggered it?
So this is a conditional use permit and it's based on that use. It's based on that mini warehouse use. So
Mini warehouse requires a conditional use
within
permit.
this zoning, what does require a condition.
And what is this zoning?
This zoning is your MU zoning.
MU.
And so, it should be noted, if we look at this location, we had two other vacant buildings that we're looking at, right, Fire Creek just down to things. So we are currently this sort of mid box to bigger boxes. It's seeing a transition in these adaptive reuses. So you're seeing another non-traditional uses that we normally see in these coming in. It is just a changing market. And so part of what the city is looking at is vacant buildings versus sort of adaptive reuse or rethinking this. It does require the conditional use permit, and that's to look at it. Is this appropriate in this location?
I'm gonna bring up another point, which is this was ground zero for the street racing, what do we call? Sideshow, thank you. This was the first one in Reno. We've had street racing, but we haven't had sideshows. This was the first one. And Dave was the one who sent me the video. That was the moment I got involved, was on day one, version 1. But one of the
Parking
things.
lot because of that.
What's that?
We had to go and stripe the parking lot because they really.
So two things. One, putting in dividers, the trees and all this reduces its accessibility to sideshows. They go to places where there aren't obstacles. And number two, we are going to the legislature with a a suite of recommended legal changes so that we can even better enforce on that. But you can do it physically, and many of the buildings where they do the sideshows down in South Reno are putting in various barriers and different configurations in their parking lots to deal with it. So there's a reason to do it for amenities, but there's also a reason to do it for safety. So it's just fun, but
But it's a very good point.
yeah,
The other thing we're really excited about is the significant increase in security
Yeah.
and camera monitoring.
Yeah.
And actually, they will have on-site monitoring
Yeah.
for the property. So anything that happens on that property, StoreQuest and us will know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's gonna help us as well. Yes.
One of the challenges with parking that we're trying to figure out with all the donuts and all those things people are doing is what to do as far as restricting that, but also our snow removal. How our parking lot is right now, our snow removal is very deep.
right.
And it gets incredibly expensive every time it snows here. And with all the different little barriers inside, we've looked at having curbs put in, cement, in every single part that's and whatnot, but our snow removal costs would be through the roof.
Yeah, but
So we're trying to figure out.
We understand. It's always a balancing act.
yeah, but a
As
lot
we
of
do
the
things,
parking
yeah.
lots have either the curb things, you know, just the parking curb things, or they have a strip with the trees, you know, so you can't do this kind of gathering. So
When you run the irrigation, you can do heating lines that just melt the snow.
There you go.
Win.
That's a good idea. Yeah. But is there any charge for running those lines?
No, they're free. Yeah, it's a trial period.
Heating elements when they turn them on.
We have time for one more comment, Patrick.
Yeah, Patrick Fisher for the record. The storefront, as I recall, if you come out of the sliding doors, you step right onto the cross traffic. There's no sidewalk in front of the storefront as it is currently.
Yeah, so we're putting a crosswalk in.
Okay, so, but
We'll have a crosswalk that will come across the front and then come all the way over to Tyler over here on the other side.
because I always thought it was dangerous as I was driving through there. If somebody stepped out of the market in a hurry, they'd be stepping right in front of my car.
Yes,
Rayleigh's did that when they were a tenant,
yeah. That was done by Rayleigh's in 2011.
pushed down.
So that's going to change. There'll be more of a buffer between traffic and the storefront.
Yes, and also there won't be quite as much traffic. We also do have big speed bumps here, so they can't go very fast. But we'll have a crosswalk that will go right across the front and right into there.
Mentioning that connectivity then between the coming restaurant in the older,
the Cup Cafe.
the Cup Cafe to the restaurants in the annex, you want to create as much connectivity between those two things as possible.
And I might comment that planning actually brought that up. We thought it was a phenomenal idea, so we're incorporating that.
Okay.
Incorporating what?
The crosswalk,
Connecting the annex.
Yeah.
connecting the mall and the annex with
Okay.
actual formal crosswalk
That's good.
rather than just walking through the parking.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That-
Can I ask a clarifying question?
But if we want, because we've got more projects.
Is there the ability at council, it's just my ignorance on this, in the future unrelated to this project, that when there's a conditional use situation like this, for things like reevaluating trees to kick in?
I think so. I mean, the bottom line is that this parking lot's a big heat sink. And I will share with you that the mall that's across from Whole Foods, which is where like the FedEx and Taco Bell over, you know where I'm talking about, on Neil Road. They're right after the roundabout. They were also built in the 70s. And what I'm confused about is the condition for that development. They had put in 119 trees, 120 trees. It's astonishing to see this with none. And we got involved with them because after 40 years, they cut down all the trees.
Yeah.
And we had to put them all back. We had to have them put them all back. And they cut down 79 and we had them have them put 120 back. What's confusing to me is what was actually permitted here, you know, in the original plans.
So all the islands are there. And then
They're
what we're
just
gonna
missing the
do,
trees.
yes, the trees have died over the course of the years. So we're going to replace them. with-
I see.
Yeah.
Was there irrigation though when they were put in?
And we did that in response to comments from planning as well.
It's just that we're one of the fastest warming in the country, and it's these big parking lots with no mitigation from the shade of the tree. That's challenging. But anyway, I just didn't know if it was built at the same time. We set the same planning staff. They probably had at one time quite a few trees.
Certainly, and obviously it's looking at the islands that are existing, they're gonna replace those trees to that point. You know, there are challenges. We're looking at the use here, right? And this is basically a tentative, we're not seeing new development or something where we start to kick in a lot more landscape. And we also need to make sure that we're looking at a landscape to be in nexus of that overall use that's being applied, right? We need to make sure those are connected and that they're doing that. So what they are looking at is to make sure that they're improving what they originally were sort of subject to code in doing that. And then as stated, as we're seeing new development or new buildings or the possibility of that in the future, that's when we would anticipate kind of seeing our new code kick in and those requirements with some of those other options.
And we did that on the annex, but the annex was the parcel that was on the one side there. And we did, we put in trees there, we landscaped.
But that was a use change.
Put islands.
Those were use changes to TI improvements too.
Actually, we did a full fascia exterior.
It's
remodel.
beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, I go there a lot.
And then we did patio, and then we applied to the landscape code.
Yeah, and so we
Rob, I think they cut everybody
yes,
off.
to that, yes, we can. It's to the extent that we try to make it equitable and feasible.
Thank you, Rob. Rob, thank you. Thank you so much. Dave, thank you for coming out today. We appreciate your time and spending with us and hearing all about our great projects. Thank you. We're gonna move on to our next one, B.1.4 LDC 230035, Green Acre Storage. A request has been made for a conditional use permit. So we have another one, everyone. To establish a 310 unit mini warehouse facility comprised of 7 buildings and RV storage. The 1.5 acre project site is located south of the terminus of Green Acres Drive. The project site is located within the mixed use suburban MS zoning district and has a master plan use designation of suburban mixed use. We have a presenter on this one today. Oh. Do we have any? Dean Brooke,
Is there anyone virtual here to present for
anybody
the Green
present
Acres storage?
on the storage unit today, Green Acre Storage?
Double check, I know that they did, the last confirmation I had, they did get a presentation.
I do have their presentation materials.
And it does not appear.
Russell Myers?
Yeah.
He's,
Raised hand. Oh, there you are, Russell.
Maybe remote, yeah.
Here. Let me promote you to a panelist. Let's give it just a second.
Okay, this is Russell.
Russell Myers, he'll be rejoining as a panelist.
Russell, you should have the ability to unmute and I will run your slides for you. Just let me know.
Perfect. Can you all hear me?
We can, if you can speak up a little bit, that would be helpful.
Certainly. Is this better?
Yes, that's much
Thank you,
better.
Russell. Welcome to the meeting, Russell.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I'm Russell Myers. I'm the architect for the project. I'd kind of like to start with the site, which is a rather constrained site. It's over 1,100 feet deep and only approximately, it varies, but it's approximately 70 foot in width. Opposite the site is an existing Green Acre storage that we want to expand and develop additional storage accommodations on this site. We've worked with the fire department. They're requiring a 26-foot wide fire lane, which further restricts the site due to its narrowness. But we've worked with the fire department to develop the compliant fire lane and hammerhead to accommodate their response. In addition, we're putting in a fire line which will provide for 6 fire hydrants to serve our site. The site is located adjacent to the freeway, at the terminus of, as indicated, Green Acre Drive. And it will basically be an extension of the existing Green Acre storage facility just to the north, at the end of Green Acres. It'll be managed by the same individuals who are currently managing the existing facility. And what we're proposing are 6 rather similar buildings of various configurations for storage. And at the end, a larger building that is purposed for RVs and trailers and larger vehicles. We've been working with planning to address the issues of compliance being in an MS zone. And though we will need to facilitate the conditional use permit, we're trying to facilitate the additional application as a, not as a major deviation, but an alternate equivalent compliance. We feel we can get not the entire 20% required landscaping, but 10% or greater. And part of that will entail along the freeway a green wall that will be landscaped in addition to the landscaping shown on the plans. In addition, we're comfortable we can accommodate, due to the zone, the code changes, the additional parking requirement, which is now based on square footage, not units. So we're confident we can bring and address planning department's comments for compliance and potentially requiring the alternate equivalent compliance for at least the landscaping. Part of the MS requirement is for building element variations in the front facade. Having a radius of 93 feet and approximately 27 feet for the curb cut apron for access somewhat restricts our ability to develop building facade on the street frontage. So what we're looking to do is develop for both security and to address the building facade requirement is make that wall address the 5 elements and possibly incorporate landscaping as well in the wall. If you go to the next sheet, if you notice, fronting the building, we have security fencing. We're looking at the opportunity of attaching and integrating the storage building. It's really a storage. The office component is really a remote workstation to serve the primary office across the street for possibly forms and printing of rules and ordinances. But we're going to physically attach the restroom facility building to the office storage and accommodate the 10-foot separation to storage unit building 1. We're going to incorporate that building in the building facade fronting Green Acres and use that in part along with the security fencing on the landscape element in the middle to develop our 5 various architectural elements. We are planning on having a window in the storage building fronting Green Acres, but for security purposes, obviously it won't be operable, and it may entail something along the lines of glass block. But again, to get the landscaping in the front to help screen this, a lot of the building frontage and security fencing or wall is going to be screened by the landscaping. So, you know, we're trying diligently to work with planning to find something that they're comfortable with and meets the intent, hopefully through an alternative equivalent compliance.
Okay, Russell, thank you. So for the board members, looking at this, it's at the end of Green Acres Drive behind Lexus.
Yes.
And so they've got an existing site across the cul-de-sac. And so it looks like they're gonna be obviously putting it in here. Russell, I guess you guys are gonna be doing landscaping along the west side of the storage units on the side of the freeway, so that when you're driving along, so similar to the other storage unit site, so that there's gonna be landscaping along the back of those storage units. Is that correct?
Well, yes, on the easement, the NDOT easement side, that's really the fire lane, but the security fencing along that property line. And one of the pictures will show a chain link fence, which we'll get to eventually, will be landscaped and provide the green wall.
Thank you.
One next. Another one. There to the right, oh, you just passed it. To the right, you see our site. There's an existing chain link fence that runs along the property line. That will represent like a green wall. Well, you know, it'll be landscaped with climbing or hanging landscape elements.
Other questions from my board?
Yeah, I'm a little confused. You're talking about the reason that you're here is what you're gonna go for. It's a question, is what you're going for this reduction in landscaping? Is that the question, Manny?
No, the reason why they're here is because they have to get a conditional use permit to put in warehouse storages in this particular zone.
It's again, the wrong zoning.
Yeah, it's like, just like the last
Right,
project.
okay, but he was talking about the alternative equivalent compliance or the whatever, because of the landscaping, you cut the landscaping 20 to 12%.
So as was stated, you know, this is a very unique parcel. It's very thin. It has some quite a few constraints on it. And so as I talked about that flexibility before, when we had that major deviation, minor deviation, alternative compliance is also one of those flexibility options that we have. What that allows is them to come forth in a public hearing and propose a design that doesn't necessarily meet code by the letter, but meets the intent of what we want to do. So that's why he's talking about that extra screening and landscaping wall, that will be, they're going to propose a different way to approach it. And that different way is really being approached driven by the site itself.
Well, what don't they meet? How about that? Like what are they trying to mitigate?
So what's challenging is meeting their landscaping requirements and some of those, because of the size of that, the requirement of that 26-foot drive lane by fire and some of those others have pushed them. The use itself is allowed in that zoning, but does require that further discretionary review through that conditional use permit.
For the landscape.
So it's really the design itself does not meet our standards and requirements to the letter of the law, but what they want is saying, look, we are constrained in our site or by different design considerations, and we want you to consider this alternate way to look at this.
How do you access this place? Like, do you go through the Lexus dealership?
Yeah, and the applicant could probably speak about that a little bit more. So I think it's very good. You come down and there's a bulb out or a cul-de-sac at the end. We have an existing facility that is just to the north of this. And so you can see the cul-de-sac or bulb out at the end of the roadway there. So our access would be this coming through this
From
way.
the north?
Through this would be going south, as I understand. So yeah, this would be the north end of the site, and then your project would be here. The other existing facility sits just on the side of Green Acres.
It's the second sheet that shows the full cul-de-sac. Next one. There.
So this is Green Acres coming down here and our access point being around the turnaround at this point. You can see the required 26. And so to sort of facilitate the use that they're proposing that alternative equivalent because of that.
Brooke, let me ask you, recently I was driving down 395 I-580 and I saw some very tall buildings right up against the freeway. Do you know where I'm talking? I don't.
This is gonna be my question.
Oh, I couldn't believe it. I'd never seen anything like this in Reno before. Everything is spread back from the freeway. Even if you want a sign within 100 feet, you have to get a variance, on and on. And I was just astonished to see this building so close to the freeway and as tall as it was. It wasn't extraordinarily tall, but it was taller to the point that it was virtually blocking the mountains from, being in a car. Your vantage point, it was tall enough to block off your vantage point. And I was just stunned that we approved that, frankly. I mean, I didn't know.
And I'm not familiar with the project.
I don't know where it
itself.
is. I just.
And
It's right by the hike that has the gazebo up on the hillside over in that area. Do you know what I'm talking about?
over by Rattlesnake Mountain,
Yeah.
Washoe County facility. is
Yeah, I
over
think
there,
kind
it's
of
over in
over
that
there.
area.
Where the freeway kind of goes past.
There's
that
a
is-
And it's
photograph.
real hard because I can't remember, the zoning and all.
Can we stay on this?
We can, my question is, how tall are these and how close are they? to the
Oh, yeah,
freeway?
the applicant can, so think about your traditional mini warehouse
Yeah.
storage, so they're gonna be 1 story tall.
Right,
I think he has an RV unit down at the end, which we'd anticipate being a little bit taller, probably under 2 stories, and I'll let the applicant speak.
and then
specifically to
how
that.
far back from the freeway itself?
So the freeway itself is sitting here. We've got a little bit more right of way in between. They're proposing that green wall to sit kind of right between their units and screen sort of their use. And so then they're sitting another 26 feet there on that fire thing.
Okay,
So the exact distance from the freeway, I'm not sure, but that's.
okay,
That is.
all right, thanks.
There's a photograph that was taken on the freeway, looking at the site. The orientation, that you go back to that, the previous one, 2 previous. There, okay. The buildings are gonna be along the left side with the fire lane on the NDOT
I got you. Yeah,
So
okay. Right. Sort of like Old South Virginia on the freeway,
Yeah.
where the buildings are on the other side of the street.
Yes.
now there's another picture on the freeway, looking at our site that I referred to before. Well, there it shows the grade change, the elevated freeway and our pad. Right. Again, our site along the freeway will be landscape. Now go to the very last picture. If you notice, this is Seiler Court. It's the only cul-de-sac that is perpendicular and
To the freeway.
oriented, looking at our site across the freeway. And what you're seeing to the left of the bus is the 2-story office building, existing Green Acre Storage. That is the primary office that'll serve our site. And that's 2 stories. Our structures are only 1 story in height. And most of what you're going to see from this side may be some receding roof lines of sheds and gables.
Well, I'm a little confused. So Seiler Court though is on the east side of the freeway.
Right.
And your project's on the west side of the freeway and yours is on the east, right? You're behind Lexus?
Yeah, we're on the other side. In this picture, we're on the other side of the freeway.
Right,
So I just want to point out, as part of the elevation changes and grades, you're not going to see much of our site from this side, from the residential side.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right, thank you, Russell. Are there any other questions for Russell? Okay, Russell, thank you for your time and for your presentation. We appreciate that.
Thank you all and have a good evening.
If anybody has any further comments, please send them over to fill out your project form and submit them to Tyler.
So Carter Williams is the planner on this case, and this case has not scheduled for a hearing. So the project form.
Okay, our next project is LDC 23-00037 Caramella Ranch tentative map extension. So I say our request has been made for a 2-year time extension for a previously approved 100 lot single family residential tentative map, Caramella Ranch Estate. So with that, I'm not going to read the rest.
What is Spicio?
Yeah.
Changes.
Oh, thanks, Jeff.
It's Jeff.
Hey, everybody.
Hello, Jeff. Welcome.
I haven't seen a lot of you guys in a really long time, but Jeff Borkart, Brothers, I'm their senior land and settlement manager. So
You know, Jeff, I think you need to stay on the other side because that's the Zoom camera, I think. But it hasn't been moving. Usually it moves with the sound.
This one is.
for everybody's company.
Oh, it's
This
just
one
been
is-
like looking at me.
yes.
It's like,
Static.
surely you want to look at the presenter.
Yeah, unfortunately, this one doesn't have the
Focus
logic to move.
specifically on you.
Uh-huh.
All right, let's take it to the next slide. So this is just a request to extend our existing approval. So the way that tentative maps work, you get an approval. You get 4 years to file your initial final map. So you have a tentative map, which is a tentative approval, and you have your final map, which is your final approval. And so we have already recorded final maps on this entire portion, this entire portion, this portion up here, and all of this. That red right there is in for final map review right now. Other jurisdictions in the state of Nevada say that once you submit a final map, that is as good as keeping your entitlement alive. Rena's a little bit different. You have to actually functionally record that final map. So as you guys have already seen, go to the next slide real quick. This is all the permits that we've done on this project already. So we initially came in, got approval in 2017. That was for 935 lots. We came back and got an amendment to that approval in 2019 to add 20 additional lots and a piece called the cottages. And throughout that whole process, we were recording final maps. Whether that's the infrastructure for Western Skies, 103 lots, 199 lots, 198 lots, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And like I said, we've submitted our most recent one, which is 100 lots. We are entitled for a little bit more than that, I think 105 additional lots, but we're only doing 100 lots as of right now. So go to the next slide. You can see all of this phasing right here, how much we've done, the mix of everything, and this is the portion that's left red up here. So go to the next slide. As you guys already know, we've seen dramatic interest rate increases. In fact, it's the fastest interest rate increase in history. So we went from selling a ton of houses to not selling a lot of houses. And so the way that we were projecting everything, we take our sales pace. We say we need to record this map by this time. It takes 10 to 12 months to get a final map approved through the process. No fault of the cities, most of it's utility coordination and gathering signatures. You have to get 26 signatures on a sheet of paper, do it the same way that we've done it since the 1800s. For some reason, we haven't gone electronic on that one piece, but one day we will. So it takes a long time to get that through the process. Then it takes about 9 months to do the civil improvements on that site, putting the utilities in the ground, grading the site, putting the walls in. So we moved our village forward. So the Regency project here has 5 villages.
We moved Village 4 up a little bit sooner than we originally anticipated because we needed those lots. We were selling so many houses, we needed to get ahead of those lots. Then boom, by the time we were done with construction, interest rates went through the roof and all of a sudden we have so many lots. So rather than recording the phase 5 map, we don't need it yet. That recordation alone will cost us millions of dollars in fees. So once, just like Toll Brother, or just like anybody, Toll Brothers just doesn't have $1 million to go. We take a loan out on that money. We will pay an interest rate on that millions of dollars. We'll carry that interest rate until we need those lots. Well, it doesn't make any sense. It's just gonna sit fallow for a while. We'll be paying interest on all those fees for no reason. So we just need a little bit more time to record. So what we're planning on doing is breaking our phase 5 into 2 sub phases. So we can move a little bit through there on a more financially advantageous basis. So you can go to the next slide. We're requesting the 2-year extension. It allows us more time to finish that design and breaking it into smaller phases. By doing that, we got to go back through the whole final map process. We're about halfway through right now. We got to start over. Even though the design is very similar, we got to go back and talk to all the utility companies again. We got to resubmit our water project with the Truckee Meadows Water Authority. All that takes time.
You mean if you get the extension?
If we get the
have to
extension, we're
start
gonna do
again?
that. Yeah, yeah, because we want to break it into 2. We want to still do the first portion, but we want a little bit more time to do the second portion because we don't need as many. And to put things in perspective, we have tons of walls here.
Tons of
Walls, retaining walls. We've already graded the site. It's gonna take us a really long time to build these walls. It's gonna take us a long time to build the entrance. So while we're doing all that construction, we'd rather be working on all that mapping in the background while we finish all the construction, then we can move into the heavy civil. To put things in perspective, we already graded it. Like I said, we have about 30% of the infrastructure already in because it was there to support offsite improvements for other villages. So we have a vested interest in continuing with this community. We just need a little bit more time to break it out into sub phases. So that's the reason why we're doing it. There's no changes to the approval. We just need a little bit extra time.
Jeff, what happens if it isn't granted and who grants it? Is it the council or is it the planning commission?
Planning commission.
It's not, they are the one that decides? Or does it-
Yes, and if it doesn't get granted, then we move forward with doing our final map the way that it's submitted now. So
Those timelines are designated by Nevada revised statute. So the 4 years is from Nevada, which is what they're allowed from their tentative map to get their final map done. That extension of time is allowed for NRS and it goes through our planning commission. They can allow up to 2 additional years to build. So they can have for 2 additional
Right.
years.
Fines.
Right, so no, 2
No,
years. So what
2
you do is you record the map in the 4-year period, which we did a long time ago. And then you get 2 years every single time. Every single time you record a map, you get 2 years. And so because we recorded the Village 4 map earlier than we anticipated, our 2 years is ending earlier than we anticipated. And so we just need the extra time. So if you go to the next slide real quick, it'll show you what the findings are. These are the findings in state law. We agree to comply with all conditions and requirements of this title. Well, yeah, we're not proposing to change any of the conditions. We're already halfway through the process. We're almost ready to be approved. We're not changing any of that. We're just breaking it into 2 phases. We agree to pay all applicable fees. Well, yeah, we have to, or we won't get our approval. So those are the 2 findings, pretty easy to meet. So I don't know if anybody has any questions. Nothing's really changing. We're just asking for 2 more years.
And I guess one more thing for NRS. NRS says that you can't change those original conditions or that original final map unless something that affects public health or safety comes in, a new code or something like that, that could be looked at that time. So there's no modifications. We don't anticipate any modifications to the original conditions.
I don't want to change it.
A little bit confused. Is the background noise here is that since you want to do them differently, You need the granting of the extension so that you don't have to get a loan. What is the loan you were talking about? Tie into, is that just talk or what? I mean, how does that?
No, I mean, it's a financial decision for us to move slower.
Yeah. Okay, that's
So
what
it's like saying
this
you have
one-
$0 in your bank account. Why are you gonna go buy a car now?
I wanted just the clarification. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Jeff? All right, Jeff, thank you so much for coming out. Thank you
Thanks,
for your
guys.
patience. Hey, guys, we're gonna speed through. We apologize to Warren Estates, the last one going here. Okay, Warren Estates zoning map amendment. A request has been made. Their zoning map amendment from single family residential to 3 units per acre. And 3 to multifamily residential, 21 units per acre. The 1.0 acre site is located on the west side of Warren Way, 425 feet south of this intersection west of Mino. Hello.
Thank you all for sticking here.
Oh, I'm so sorry that this took so long today. What a crazy night. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for adding me last minute. I appreciate it. I'll start before I get into this. We had a neighborhood meeting on Zoom. And then as a result of comments and everything from that, we did a requested continuance at the planning. So we are back here before you guys tonight. And at some point in the future, we'll be back on before the planning commission. So go to the next slide for me, Tyler. Originally, we came in requesting a change from SF3 multifamily 3 units per acre to multifamily 21 units per acre. Based on that's what similar properties have done in the area and what we thought we wanted to do with the property. After we got feedback from the planning commission in the neighborhood, back to the applicant, and have decided to amend our request, which we did formally today, to MF14. And so I've amended the slides a little bit and we'll talk about this as MF14. Here's the location of the site. It's at Warren Way, just a block off of West Milana, and Peckham down at the bottom. So it's pretty much the only completely well, it's got a single family residence right now that is not occupied. And it's a little bit of an eyesore in the neighborhood. So the property owners are looking to look for future development. Next slide. Here you can see this is looking off of Warren Way. There's existing office building to the north of it, and there's a townhome association group with 15 units south and more office buildings to the rear of it. And across the street from it are single family homes that have been turned into businesses. There's a swim center and some additional townhomes. We can go to the next. So you can look at the site right now. It's SF3. We're looking. I'm sorry I didn't update the pictures yet, but we're going to MF14, which matches both the townhomes to the south and across the street, across Warren and east, and is more closely fits with the development in the area. So next slide. So the considerations are the change to 14 units. It's complementary with the other multifamilies on the block, and it will it'll fit very nicely in there. It also brings it into compliance. Not a main point, I've taken that out of there. Oh, but it does bring it into compliance with the changes in the master plan for development. The comments that came to us were main concerns about parking, traffic, safety of children going to the swim center, and items along there. So after looking at the development, they still might want to go with townhomes up to the 14 limit, although they're also now considering maybe just a few triplexes or duplexes, which would definitely lower the density and would have all parking contained on the site for
one of the things that came up in the town hall meeting was that the complex next door every night has 5 cars on the street. And there's really, they've kind of absorbed all the on-street parking. And they were worried about just trying to contain the parking on site, you know, having it be self-sufficient.
Exactly. So they're looking at that and looking at different ways to maximize the site, provide additional housing, but still maintain all the parking and
the biggest comments I've had since in emails and phone calls from residents were, yeah, we might later want to develop our property and we all need to keep the parking on the property. So I've gone over that with our clients. We're very aware. We know it can't be conditioned at this point, but part of going down to the MF 14 from MF 21 is to address some of the parking issues. And then it's also, the MF 14 works well as a transition zone from the office zone right into residential, and it complements the other. And this is a lower density change than the other properties were granted in the past. And I just want to say a thank you to that client for considering the change when they might have been able to bulldoze through and get the 21, but they do want to be good neighbors and have a good relationship before they start.
Look, I gotta say, I'm very impressed with this change. I mean, you all listened at the town hall. You heard it, you integrated, and you already made a change. And that's like phenomenal, because right?
It's huge.
Thank you. I think
It's
that's
remarkable.
the purpose of this process. And I was glad to come back tonight to be able to have something positive.
A good
to say.
story.
Yes.
And just so people know, I mean, I don't know whether they need to know, but the owner of this is the owner of Palais de Jade. So it's right there. You know, it's adjacent. I'm interested.
And they are concerned. They're not trying to put something in that's not going to fit in the neighborhood or be unsafe. And one of the comments that came up at you go back to the pictures of the site that came up during the previous meetings go back. There you go. There's no sidewalk. This is the one portion of the street that has no sidewalks on it. So development code is going to require the sidewalks to go in. So developing this property is going to improve the overall pedestrian availability.
Do they have to underground these wires at all?
They're probably going to have to underground the wire.
It will also be a significant improvement.
It will. Yeah, the poles are gonna have to come down, go underground. We're gonna have to put a better access. And reducing the numbers means we may not have to go on to another property to have a second access. We might be able to do a turn.
Oh, because we were talking about that, whether you needed so at the higher density, would you have? And this
We would have
means you
had
wouldn't
to
have-
either do a cul-de-sac.
It would have depended on what was proposed for the final development, but the zoning, it could have with that, making sure that.
Right. So
What's the building height in 14?
in 14, it goes down to 35 feet, 2.5 stories, which is the same as all the other MF 14.
So good.
Just for MF 21 allows 45 feet and 3 stories. So we would have had.
Isn't that nice?
It's really great.
Really good.
All right, does anybody, that's it for my presentation.
Just tell them you think they're swell and I'm eating at their restaurant and I'll figure that out.
Thank you so much.
Patreon, you get some for those. Did you actually go to the planning commission?
Yes, I went and asked for a continuance.
Oh, I got you.
Yes.
And they didn't comment or they did comment?
We did take public comments
Oh.
because there was people in the neighborhood
Oh, I
in the
see.
audience, and I was doing it the day of. So I know Donna, you had comments on Zoom, and there was a gentleman in the audience who I spoke with afterward, who is the secretary of the homeowners association next door.
Oh,
So
They recorded comments on the phone.
they had many left.
They had telephone comments.
Oh.
Yes.
So all of those were played, all of those were heard, and then the continuance was granted. And one of the planning commissioners asked that all those first be played again at the next hearing.
Well, I love seeing the infill. I love matching the next door, the across the street, addressing the parking. I mean, this is what we hope for from this process. And yet we still get the density, the infill. Kind of working.
Yeah, tell them I think it's swell.
Great job. Thank you so much.
As was request, there was a request for that continuance. That was not a date certain, so we don't have a hearing date set at this time, so we'll still be setting that hearing date on that.
Thank you for letting me present to you tonight.
Thank you for.
Thank you.
Okay, item number C, board commission committee member reports and announcements. Anybody have anything? Hearing none. Brooke, I have
I'm gonna
one
make one
question for you.
announcement. We hired a new police chief, so that's a pretty big deal for the city. It's Catherine or Kathleen?
Catherine.
Catherine
Mhm.
Vance,
Nance.
Nance, excuse me. So we're very excited. You know, there's gonna be a big transition there. And we've had Jason Soto for, I don't know, 7 years, something like that. So it's very exciting for him. He's already left the building to my knowledge. And it seemed like we've also hired another deputy city manager or assistant city manager. And that's Eric Edelstein. He was managing the Aces and the ball field. And so he's coming on as a redevelopment director, assistant city manager, right? That's the right title. So that's very interesting as well. So I just want to let people know. You want to take over for her?
Are there any other board or commission member reports or announcements before we move on? Hearing none, move on to the future agenda items. Chair?
Any future agenda items?
I think the Reno Police Department report is coming back next week. So
The police department report has been moved to March. They're going to try and get us some written comments. The RPD liaison was not available for the February meeting. So they're going to push that back a little, but we'll make sure to get you some written comments and keep you apprised of that on the agenda.
Anyway, we do. Is she?
she starts mid-February.
She starts mid-February. Yes,
So
so
eventually.
eventually, yes, if we can ask that she gets her feet underneath of her.
Yes, So exciting. I'm really.
And
excited.
then I assume that she'll be making her rounds to a few opportunities. So we'll put that on the schedule.
Okay, anybody else? I know everybody's exhausted.
For
It's-
future,
Yes.
is there, who would be the appropriate person from the city to come talk about kind of what's going on along the freeway in South Reno?
It's a good question.
I just like,
There's a lot
if we
of
can
stuff.
stop it before it keeps happening, we're gonna block our views the whole
I know.
way.
There's,
Freeway.
there's 2 or 3 sites where those huge buildings are going up, and so
Really?
Yes.
It's so frustrating.
it's really bad.
Oh, yeah, we went 10 feet in almost, it's like.
It feels like they're almost on top of the freeway. So I don't know, maybe you could reach out.
We'll flag and identify with planning staff. That might be. We'll figure out what the
Some of-
nuances are on those. If you have specific parcels that you know are location, business types, that'll help us a little bit.
Because, for example, there was a building permitted right on Plumas that looks like it's about 10 feet from the neighbor's window. The 2 tall
Oh,
apartments.
it's so wrong. The planning got so wrong.
I don't know how this happened. And so there's been some challenges where it's not going to the planning staff, it's just going directly to the building staff.
Correct.
And I don't think that they, they just go, is the electrical right, is the plumbing right, this and that, and I don't think some of these considerations are
Have any
being
of those
made.
people called you about that?
I can't believe, well, it's not even my ward anymore, but nevertheless.
So long.
We haven't seen the request come in through the other council members yet, no.
No, but I mean, it's already built.
Correct.
Oh,
So we've not seen the complaints come through.
Oh.
Doesn't mean that they won't, it just means they haven't yet.
okay.
But that will be helpful if
Well,
we
it would
know
be good
businesses.
It's like 38A, 38B is at the off ramp, where you take to like Summit Sierra
Okay.
Mall. It's that
It's
whole
exactly right
area.
there.
Then there's the one
And
by
there's
our old
over.
office.
Yeah.
What is that? Where they were gonna do that condo unit on the curve, by the storage unit, and there's that ginormous building right by South Rack.
Oh, really?
What?
Right, where our old office.
Yeah, I do.
And then the.
Yes, the Reno Athletic
The
Club.
daycare center, it's
Yeah.
right across the street. It's a huge building right there, right next to, that one's huge
Yes,
too. I'm like,
yes.
what is that?
And if
So
we don't stop that soon, it's gonna be like the whole corridor now.
like we have a very scenic freeway and it's gonna pretty much be like a,
Tunnel.
yes,
Yeah.
thank you. So would it be the building department, I suppose, under Chris Pingree?
It's likely under Pingree, so that's what I'll connect with him. That's why I was curious about some of the businesses and the addresses, because we need to identify if some of these are just allowed to be built by right. That's
They
why
are.
they're going straight to permit. Some of them may.
They
be.
are. Well, they
Correct.
are.
Right, because they're
And-
not coming in with any conditional use
No.
permits. They're not coming in with anything, so.
No, but I guess
Based on
what we're
code.
saying is it's not feeling right.
Right.
Those apartments. And Huff Acre and South Virginia Street.
Apparently Tanamera announced on the paper that they parted ways with the developer.
I know, now it's just sitting there.
Yeah.
I could almost
you
my
can-
mind over that.
Yeah.
That's me, Joanne.
The one at Longley and.
And now it's a
South
huge
Virginia.
eyesore sitting there, just
That's
going
what you told me.
nothing's happening.
Stopped.
Just
So
This is my ignorance on it. If somebody can come and just talk to us about either what's the process for doing zone changes now that South Reno is building out farther? Or like, what's the best avenue and who's the best person to talk to? to stop this from happening,
Or be more thoughtful.
if that makes sense.
More
It
setbacks.
does. I just need to try to figure out who the person and where the combat is between what's allowed by
Yeah.
Fourth Amendment property rights
Yeah, yeah.
compared to our zoning code. So we'll identify,
That's it. The setbacks is
There's no
what seems to be missing.
Yeah.
right, and it could be because of the freeway adjacency might be where the code identifies because it doesn't have that residential component, but I'll do some digging and then we'll get some information back to the board.
Thank you so much. Yeah, because they just keep popping up all over and we keep saying, why is this happening? So that would be wonderful. Thank you so much. Any public comment? Really?
Is there any public comment in the virtual meeting? If you'd like to give public comment, please indicate by raising your hand. I don't see any public comment virtually. I would like to direct the members to some public comment included in your packet. It's at the very beginning for the Fire Creek Casino in favor. So if that's included in your packet for your reference.
Thank you so much. And with that, anybody would like to make a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
And second.
I should give some thought.
Yeah.
I was just waiting for somebody else to.
Second by Tyler.
I think a third of us are Tyler.
Yeah, I know.
I think there's one missing.
Yeah.
Another one missing.
Guys, thank you for an incredible meeting with community development projects. It was a lot of hard work and a lot of tough stuff tonight. You guys are amazing, incredible, so thought provoking, so smart, so engaging. So thank you so much for a really amazing meeting. This is one of the hardest.
It
ones.
really was.
It was really
Thanks
good.
for running a good meeting, Amy.
Good, you managed.
Yeah.
Sorry, I let
So you're
you,
going
talk
and
for a little while,
recording?
but we have a lot.